Close your eyes now and let me tell you the story of how humans became every color, how our species transformed from a single shade into the breathtaking spectrum of human appearance that exists today. This is a story written in your skin, in your genes, in the very cells that make up your body. It is a story of migration and adaptation, of sunlight and survival, of how the environment we lived in literally painted us different colors over thousands of years. And it is a story that reveals something profound about what it means to be human, about how different we appear and yet how deeply, fundamentally the same we all are. Before we begin this journey through the history of human color, I want to let you know that if you enjoy these sleep stories, if they help you drift off while learning something profound about the world and about yourself, please consider subscribing to the channel and leaving a like on this video. It helps more people find these stories, and it allows me to keep creating these long journeys through history and science. Now, let us travel back to the beginning, to a time when every human on Earth looked essentially the same, to a time before the rainbow of human appearance existed. The story begins in Africa, because every human story begins in Africa. This is where our species was born, where Homo sapiens first emerged approximately 300,000 years ago. And in Africa, under the intense equatorial sun, the first humans had dark skin. Not just some of them, all of them. Every single human being who existed for the first 200,000 years or more of our species' history had dark brown or black skin. This is not speculation or theory. This is scientific fact, written in our genes, confirmed by everything we know about human evolution and the biology of skin color. Dark skin was not an accident. It was a necessity. The African sun is intense, pouring ultraviolet radiation onto the land below. This radiation is dangerous. It can damage DNA, cause skin cancer, and most critically for our ancestors, it can destroy folate, a B vitamin essential for cell division and fetal development. Pregnant women who lack folate have children with severe birth defects. In the African environment, light skin would have been a death sentence, not for the individual necessarily, but for their children. Evolution is ruthless about reproduction. Traits that reduce reproductive success disappear from populations. Traits that enhance it spread. Dark skin, with its high concentration of melanin, protected our ancestors from ultraviolet radiation, preserved their folate, and allowed them to have healthy children. It was selected for generation after generation until every human in Africa had dark skin. This was the original human condition. For most of our history as a species, there was no such thing as white people or Asian people or any of the categories we use today. There were just people, Africans, dark-skinned humans living in the land where humanity was born. The diversity of human color that exists today is a recent phenomenon, an evolutionary eye blink, a transformation that occurred in the last 50,000 years or so, with much of it happening in just the last 10 to 20,000 years. We are a young species, and our colors are younger still. But humans did not stay in Africa. Beginning perhaps 70,000 years ago, groups of humans began to leave, to migrate out of Africa into the wider world. They crossed into the Middle East, spread along the coasts of Asia, eventually reached Australia. They moved north into Europe, east across the steppes of Central Asia, and eventually, perhaps 15,000 years ago, they crossed into the Americas. This great migration, this spreading of humanity across the entire planet, is one of the most remarkable events in the history of life on Earth. And it is also the beginning of the story of how humans became every color. When humans left Africa, they entered environments that were profoundly different from the one in which they had evolved. The further north they went, the weaker the sunlight became. In the high latitudes of Europe and northern Asia, the sun hangs low in the sky for much of the year, its rays striking the Earth at an angle that filters out much of the ultraviolet radiation. Winters are long and dark, with months when the sun barely rises above the horizon. This was a new world for humans, a world where the rules that had governed their biology in Africa no longer fully applied. In Africa, dark skin was essential for survival, but in the north, dark skin became a problem. Ultraviolet radiation is not only destructive, it is also necessary. When UV rays strike human skin, they trigger the production of vitamin D, a nutrient essential for bone health, immune function, and countless other biological processes. In Africa, even with dark skin filtering much of the UV radiation, there was enough sunlight to produce adequate vitamin D. But in the north, with weak sunlight and long winters, Dark skin blocked too much radiation. People could not produce enough vitamin D. They developed rickets, a disease that softens and deforms bones. Women with rickets often had deformed pelvises that made childbirth dangerous or impossible. Children with rickets grew weak and sickly. Vitamin D deficiency became a threat to survival and reproduction, just as folate destruction had been a threat in Africa. Evolution responded. Just as it had selected for dark skin in Africa, it began to select for lighter skin in the north. Individuals who happened to have genetic variations that reduced melanin production, that lightened their skin, could absorb more UV radiation and produce more vitamin D. They were healthier. Their children were healthier. They reproduced more successfully. Over generations, over thousands of years, these genes spread through northern populations. Skin became lighter and lighter, until the pale complexions that we associate with European ancestry became standard. This is the essential story of how white people came to exist. They did not always exist. They evolved in response to environmental pressures from ancestors who had dark skin. The transformation was relatively recent and relatively rapid. Genetic studies suggest that the genes for very light skin became common in Europe only about 8,000 years ago, perhaps even more recently. This means that the pale skin of modern Europeans is younger than agriculture, younger than pottery, younger than the domestication of many animals. It is one of the most recent major adaptations in human evolutionary history. But Europe is only part of the story. Humans spread across the entire world into environments of every kind, from tropical rainforests to Arctic tundra, from coastal regions to high mountain plateaus. In each environment, different selective pressures operated and human populations adapted in different ways. The result is the full spectrum of human colour that exists today, from the darkest skin of equatorial Africa and Melanesia to the lightest skin of Scandinavia and the British Isles, with every shade in between represented somewhere in the human family. Let me take you through this global journey, this painting of humanity in every colour. Let me show you how each shade evolved, what pressures created it, what history is written in the skin of different peoples. It is a story that spans continents and millennia, a story that connects you to every human being on Earth through the shared biology that makes us all capable of every colour. We start where humanity started, in Africa. The continent where our species was born remains home to the greatest genetic diversity of any human population, and this includes diversity in skin colour. While we often think of Africans as uniformly dark-skinned, the reality is more complex. African populations show a range of skin tones, from the very dark skin of some Nilotic peoples of East Africa to the somewhat lighter brown skin of some San peoples of Southern Africa. This diversity reflects the long history of human evolution in Africa, the different environments within the continent, and the complex patterns of migration and mixture that have occurred over hundreds of thousands of years. The darkest skin on Earth is found among peoples living near the equator in Africa, where UV radiation is most intense. The Dinka and Nuer peoples of South Sudan, the Wadabe of the Sahel, many groups in Central Africa, these populations have skin so rich in melanin that it appears almost blue-black in certain lights. This extreme pigmentation represents the original human adaptation to the African sun, preserved in populations that have lived under equatorial conditions for countless generations. Their skin is a perfect shield against UV radiation, allowing them to work and live under the blazing sun while protecting their folate and their health. But even within Africa, there is variation. The Khoisan peoples of southern Africa, the San and Kuiko, tend to have somewhat lighter brown skin than equatorial Africans. They also have other distinctive features, including epicanthic folds of the eyes that are more commonly associated with East Asian populations. The Khoisan are among the oldest lineages of modern humans, having diverged from other human populations perhaps 100,000 years ago or more. Their appearance reflects this long separate history, this different path through time. As humans spread out of Africa, the first major stop was the Middle East, the crossroads between Africa, Europe and Asia. Here the sunlight is still strong, though not as intense as at the equator. The peoples of this region evolved skin tones that are intermediate, darker than Europeans but lighter than equatorial Africans. The olive and brown complexions of Middle Eastern populations reflect this intermediate UV environment, this balance between the need to protect against sun damage and the need to produce vitamin D. From the Middle East, One stream of migration moved east along the coast of South Asia, eventually reaching Southeast Asia and Australia. These populations remained in tropical and subtropical environments, with strong sunlight, and they retained dark skin. The indigenous peoples of India, particularly those in the south, have skin nearly as dark as many Africans. The Andaman Islanders, isolated for tens of thousands of years on islands in the Bay of Bengal, have very dark skin. The Melanesian peoples of Papua New Guinea and the surrounding islands are among the darkest people on Earth outside of Africa. This is a crucial point that undermines simplistic ideas about race. Dark skin evolved independently in multiple populations around the equator. Africans and Melanesians have similarly dark skin, not because they are closely related, but because they both live in environments with intense UV radiation. Their dark skin is a case of convergent evolution, different populations arriving at the same adaptation through independent evolutionary paths. If you looked only at skin colour, you might think Africans and Melanesians were close relatives. But genetically, Melanesians are actually more closely related to Europeans and Asians than they are to Africans. Skin colour can be deeply misleading about actual human relationships. The Australian Aboriginals present another fascinating case. They have lived in Australia for perhaps 50,000 years, longer than any other human population has lived outside of Africa. Australia spans a range of environments, from tropical in the north to temperate in the south. Aboriginal Australians show corresponding variation in skin colour, with darker skin in the tropical north and somewhat lighter skin in the temperate south. Some Aboriginal groups also occasionally produce individuals with blonde hair, a trait that evolved independently in Australia and is genetically different from European blondness. Evolution, given enough time, will find multiple solutions to the same problem. Now, let us travel north, to the latitudes where skin became light. This is perhaps the most dramatic transformation in human colour, the evolution of the very pale skin that characterises Europeans and some Northern Asian populations. As I mentioned, this transformation was driven by the need for vitamin D in environments where sunlight is weak and winters are long. But the details of how it happened are fascinating and only recently understood. For many years, scientists assumed that skin lightening was a slow, gradual process that occurred over tens of thousands of years as humans moved north. But genetic studies have revealed a more complex and surprising story. It appears that the first humans to reach Europe, perhaps 45,000 years ago, still had dark skin. They lived in Europe for tens of thousands of years, through the Ice Age and its aftermath, without evolving particularly light skin. Some lightening may have occurred, but the very pale skin of modern Europeans seems to have evolved much more recently, within the last 10,000 years or so. What changed? Agriculture. When humans began farming, their diet changed dramatically. Hunter-gatherers ate a diverse diet that included fish, which are rich in vitamin D, and wild game, which provided some vitamin D as well. They also spent much of their time outdoors, exposed to whatever sunlight was available. Farmers, by contrast, ate diets heavy in grains and domesticated plants, which are poor in vitamin D. They also spent more time indoors, working with stored crops and tending to agricultural tasks that kept them out of the sun. The transition to agriculture intensified the selection pressure for light skin. Farmers who could produce more vitamin D from less sunlight had a huge advantage over those who could not. The genes responsible for light skin in Europeans have been identified. Two genes in particular, called SLC24A5 and SLC45A2, have variants that dramatically reduce melanin production. These variants are nearly universal in European populations today, but they were rare or absent just 10,000 years ago. Ancient DNA from European hunter-gatherers shows that they often had darker skin than modern Europeans, along with blue eyes, a combination that would look striking and unusual today. It was only with the spread of farming that the genes for very light skin became common, sweeping through European populations with remarkable speed. This rapid evolution challenges our intuitions about how evolution works. We tend to think of evolution as slow, requiring millions of years to produce significant change. But when selection pressure is strong enough, evolution can work very fast indeed. In the case of European skin colour, a few thousand years was enough to transform populations from relatively dark to very light. This is evolution in action, visible in the historical record, documented in ancient DNA. It is a reminder that we are not static beings, that our species is still evolving, that the humans of the future may look different from the humans of today. While Europe was evolving light skin, a parallel but different process was occurring in East Asia. The peoples of China, Japan, Korea, and surrounding regions also have light skin, but their lightness is genetically different from European lightness. East Asians have their own set of genetic variants that reduce melanin production, variants that evolved independently from the European variants. This is another case of convergent evolution, different populations in different parts of the world arriving at similar adaptations through different genetic pathways. East Asian skin colour ranges from quite light in northern China and Japan to considerably darker in Southeast Asia. This gradient reflects the gradient of UV radiation, strong in the tropical south, weak in the temperate north. It also reflects the complex history of migrations and population mixing in the region. The peoples of Southeast Asia, living closer to the equator, retained more of the ancestral melanin that protects against UV radiation. The peoples of northern East Asia, living in environments more similar to Europe, evolved lighter skin for the same reasons Europeans did. But East Asian evolution did not stop at skin colour. These populations also evolved distinctive features that we associate with Asian appearance, including the epicanthic fold of the eyelids, the shape of the face, the texture of the hair. These features may have evolved for reasons unrelated to UV radiation, perhaps in response to the cold climates of Ice Age Asia, perhaps through sexual selection, perhaps through random genetic drift in isolated populations. The evolution of human appearance is complex, involving many genes and many environmental pressures, not all of which are fully understood. The peoples of Central Asia present another variation on the theme of human colour. These populations, living on the steppes and mountains between Europe and East Asia, show a blend of features that reflects their intermediate position. Some Central Asian groups have light skin and light eyes, similar to Europeans. Others have features more similar to East Asians. Many show a mixture, reflecting the long history of migration and mixing in this crossroads region. The ancient Silk Road, which connected China with the Mediterranean, was not just a trade route but a pathway for genes, a highway along which human populations mixed and mingled for thousands of years. South Asia presents yet another pattern. The Indian subcontinent is home to enormous diversity in skin colour, from very dark in the south to much lighter in the north. This diversity reflects multiple layers of history. The earliest inhabitants of South Asia, related to the peoples who would later reach Australia, had dark skin adapted to the tropical sun. Later migrations brought peoples from Central Asia and the Middle East, carrying genes for lighter skin. The mixing of these populations created the gradient of skin colour visible in India today, with the darkest skin in the south, where the original population was least affected by later migrations, and lighter skin in the north, where migrants from Central Asia had greater influence. The caste system of India, whatever its origins, had the effect of limiting mixing between different groups and maintaining distinctions in appearance over thousands of years. Higher castes, historically associated with the northern migrants, tend to have lighter skin than lower castes. This correlation between skin colour and social status is a human tragedy, a reminder that people have used the accidents of evolution to justify inequality and discrimination. The science of skin colour reveals no basis for such hierarchies. Skin colour is an adaptation to sunlight, nothing more. It tells us about the environments our ancestors lived in, not about our worth or abilities. Let me now take you to the Americas, the last major landmass to be colonised by humans. The indigenous peoples of the Americas descend from populations that crossed from Asia perhaps 15 to 20,000 years ago, during the Ice Age, when a land bridge connected Siberia to Alaska. These founding populations carried genes adapted to the cold climates of northeastern Asia, including relatively light skin. But as they spread through the Americas, moving south through North America, Central America, South America, all the way to the southern tip of Chile, they encountered environments of every kind, and their skin colour adapted accordingly. The indigenous peoples of the high Arctic, the Inuit and related groups, have skin that is not particularly light despite living in extremely high latitudes. This is because their traditional diet, rich in fish and marine mammals, provided abundant vitamin D, reducing the selection pressure for light skin. They also spend time on ice and snow, which reflect UV radiation upward, increasing their exposure. The Inuit show that skin colour is not determined by latitude alone, but by the complex interaction of UV exposure, diet, and other factors. Moving south, Indigenous peoples of temperate North America had somewhat darker skin, adapted to the stronger sunlight of lower latitudes. The peoples of Central America and the Amazon basin, living in tropical environments with intense UV radiation, evolved darker skin still. And the indigenous peoples of the Andes, living at high altitudes where UV radiation is intense despite the cooler temperatures, also developed protective pigmentation. The Americas, colonized by a single founding population, became a laboratory for the evolution of skin color, as that original population diversified to match the diverse environments of two continents. But the human story of the Americas does not end with indigenous peoples. Beginning in 1492, Europeans arrived, bringing their own genes, including genes for very light skin. And beginning in the 16th century, millions of Africans were brought to the Americas as slaves, carrying genes for very dark skin. The mixing of these populations, along with continued indigenous populations, created the extraordinary diversity of skin color visible in the Americas today. In Latin America, centuries of mixing among indigenous European and African populations have created populations with every possible shade of skin color. A single family may include members who would be classified as white, brown, and black by the crude categories we use. The concept of race, so rigidly defined in some societies, becomes almost meaningless in the face of this continuous variation. The people of Latin America embody the truth that all humans are one species, capable of mixing freely, producing viable and fertile offspring, generating every shade of the human rainbow. In North America, a different history created different patterns. The institution of slavery and the laws that supported it created rigid racial categories, the one-drop rule that classified anyone with any African ancestry as black, regardless of their actual skin color. This social construction of race obscured the biological reality that skin color is a continuous variable, that many Americans classified as black have substantial European ancestry, that the boundaries between races are arbitrary and socially defined rather than biologically real. The Caribbean presents yet another variation. Islands colonized by different European powers, populated by different mixes of indigenous peoples, Europeans and Africans, developed different populations with different ranges of skin color. Jamaica is different from Cuba, is different from Puerto Rico, is different from Haiti. Each island is a unique experiment in human mixing, a demonstration of how quickly populations can change when people from different parts of the world come together. Now let me step back from the geography and talk about the biology in more detail. What exactly is skin color? What is melanin? How does it work? Understanding the mechanism will help you appreciate just how remarkable the evolution of human color has been. Skin color is determined primarily by melanin, a pigment produced by specialized cells called melanocytes. These cells are located in the deepest layer of the epidermis, the outer layer of skin. Melanocytes produce melanin and package it into small structures called melanosomes, which are then transferred to the surrounding skin cells. The melanin absorbs ultraviolet radiation, protecting the DNA in skin cells from damage. Here is a surprising fact. All humans have approximately the same number of melanocytes. Dark-skinned people do not have more melanocytes than light-skinned people. The difference lies in how much melanin those melanocytes produce, what type of melanin they produce, and how the melanosomes are distributed. Dark skin results from melanocytes that produce abundant melanin and distribute it evenly throughout the skin cells. Light skin results from melanocytes that produce less melanin and distribute it in smaller clumps. There are two main types of melanin. Eumelanin is brown or black and provides the most protection against UV radiation. Pheomelanin is yellow or red and provides less protection. The ratio of eumelanin to pheomelanin affects skin color and also hair color. People with red hair have high levels of pheomelanin and lower levels of eumelanin, which is why they are often fair-skinned and prone to sunburn. The production of melanin is controlled by numerous genes, probably over 100 genes that have some effect on skin color. But a handful of genes have very large effects. I mentioned SLC24A5 and SLC45A2 earlier, the genes that account for much of the light skin in Europeans. Another important gene is MC1R, which affects the ratio of eumelanin to pheomelanin. Variants of MC1R are associated with red hair and very fair skin. The KITLG gene affects melanocyte development and has variants associated with blonde hair. OCA2 and HERC2 affect eye color as well as skin color. What is remarkable is how quickly variants in these genes can spread through a population when selection pressure is strong. A single genetic variant that increases vitamin D production in a low sunlight environment can double in frequency in just a few generations. Over a few thousand years, it can go from rare to nearly universal. This is the power of natural selection, the engine that has painted humanity in every colour. But evolution is not the only factor affecting skin colour. Skin can change colour within an individual's lifetime in response to UV exposure. Tanning is the process by which skin produces more melanin in response to sun exposure, a protective response that darkens the skin temporarily. People with light skin can tan to some degree, though they are more likely to burn before they tan. People with dark skin can also darken somewhat with sun exposure, though the change is less noticeable. This ability to tan is itself an adaptation, a flexible response that allows skin to adjust to varying levels of UV exposure. The genes for tanning ability vary among populations. Some populations, particularly those from Northern Europe, have limited tanning ability and burn easily. Others, particularly those from regions with moderate UV levels, have greater tanning ability. This variation reflects the evolutionary history of different populations, the environments they adapted to, and the strategies they evolved for dealing with UV radiation. There is also variation in how skin ages. UV radiation damages the skin over time, causing wrinkles, age spots, and loss of elasticity. Dark skin, which is better protected against UV damage, tends to show fewer signs of aging than light skin exposed to the same amount of sunlight. The phrase "black don't crack" reflects this biological reality, the protective effect of melanin extending beyond UV radiation to the visible signs of aging. Let me now talk about something important. What skin color does not tell us. Skin color does not tell us about intelligence. It does not tell us about character. It does not tell us about abilities or potential. It does not tell us about the worth of a human being. Skin color tells us about one thing and one thing only: the UV environment in which a population's ancestors lived. The idea that skin color is associated with other traits, that it marks deep biological differences between groups of people, is a myth. It is a myth that has been used to justify terrible injustices, from slavery to genocide, from colonialism to segregation. But it is a myth nonetheless, unsupported by any scientific evidence. When geneticists compare human populations from around the world, they find that the vast majority of genetic variation exists within populations rather than between them. Two randomly selected people from the same village in Africa may be more genetically different from each other than either is from a randomly selected person from Europe or Asia. The genetic differences between so-called races are tiny compared to the genetic differences within races. Skin color is one of the most visible ways humans differ, but it is one of the least meaningful genetically. The genes that affect skin color are just that: genes that affect skin color. They are not linked to genes for intelligence or personality, or any of the other traits that racists have claimed are distributed differently among races. The geography of skin color reflects the geography of UV radiation, nothing more. The idea that skin color is a marker for deeper differences is a social construction, a story we have told ourselves, not a biological reality. This is not to say that population groups do not differ genetically. They do. Populations that have been separated for thousands of years have accumulated different genetic variants, some of which affect visible traits like skin color, hair texture, and facial features. But these differences are superficial, literally skin deep. They do not extend to the traits that matter most: our capacity for thought, for feeling, for love, for creativity, for everything that makes us human. Understanding the evolution of skin color can help us see through the myth of race. It reveals that the categories we use to divide humanity are recent, arbitrary, and constantly changing. A few thousand years ago, there were no white people. A few thousand years from now, the human population may look entirely different again. We are not static types, fixed in place. We are a flowing river, constantly changing, constantly adapting, constantly becoming something new. Let me tell you now about some of the most interesting recent discoveries in the science of skin color. In the last 2 decades, advances in genetic technology have allowed scientists to study ancient DNA, extracting genetic material from bones thousands of years old. This has revolutionized our understanding of how skin color evolved. One of the most surprising discoveries is how recently light skin evolved in Europe. Ancient DNA from European hunter-gatherers who lived 8,000 years ago shows that many of them had darker skin than modern Europeans, combined with blue eyes. This combination would be unusual today, but was common in ancient Europe. The genes for very light skin only became common with the spread of farming, which happened within the last 8,000 years. The transition from dark to light in Europe was not a slow process spanning tens of thousands of years. It was rapid, occurring over just a few millennia. Another surprising discovery involves the complexity of African skin color genetics. For a long time, scientists had studied the genetics of skin color primarily in European populations, where a few genes with large effects explain most of the variation. They assumed that African populations would be similar, but recent studies of African skin color genetics have revealed a much more complex picture. African populations have been evolving in place for far longer than any other human populations, and they have accumulated more genetic diversity, including diversity in genes affecting skin color. The genes that affect skin color in Africans are numerous, and many of them were previously unknown. Some of these genes have variants that existed before modern humans even evolved, variants inherited from more ancient human species. The genetics of African skin color is a library of human evolutionary history, containing information about our species that cannot be found elsewhere. Studies have also revealed that light skin evolved independently multiple times in human history. European light skin, East Asian light skin, and the occasionally light skin found in some African and Melanesian populations all involve different genes. Evolution has found multiple genetic solutions to the problem of producing vitamin D in low UV environments. This convergent evolution is a reminder that natural selection is a powerful force, capable of reshaping organisms whenever the environment demands it. Another fascinating discovery involves the Neanderthals, our extinct relatives who lived in Europe and Western Asia until about 40,000 years ago. Genetic studies show that Neanderthals had variants associated with light skin and red hair. This makes sense. They had lived in high-latitude environments for hundreds of thousands of years and would have evolved adaptations to weak sunlight. When modern humans left Africa and encountered Neanderthals, the two groups interbred. Most people outside of Africa carry some Neanderthal DNA, about 2% on average. Some of this Neanderthal DNA may have included genes for lighter skin, giving modern humans a head start on adapting to northern environments. The interbreeding with Neanderthals and other archaic humans like the Denisovans is another reminder of how complex human evolutionary history is. We are not a pure lineage descended from a single population. We are a braided stream, multiple lineages coming together and separating, exchanging genes, blending and reblending over hundreds of thousands of years. The skin color you have today may include contributions from Neanderthals, from Denisovans, from ancient African populations that no longer exist as distinct groups. Your skin is a palimpsest, a document written and rewritten by evolution over countless generations. Let me also tell you about the future. Human skin color will continue to evolve, though the direction and rate of evolution are difficult to predict. In the modern world, several factors are changing the selection pressures that shaped skin color in the past. First, technology has altered our relationship with sunlight. We wear clothing that covers much of our skin. We live and work indoors under artificial light. We can take vitamin D supplements, eliminating the need to produce it through sun exposure. We can wear sunscreen, protecting light skin from UV damage. These technologies weaken the selection pressures that shaped skin color in the past. Without strong selection, skin color may evolve more slowly, or not at all, or in directions determined by other factors. Second, global migration and mixing are blending human populations on an unprecedented scale. People from every part of the world now live in the same cities, meet each other, form families, have children together. The genes for light and dark skin, evolved in separate populations, are now being combined in new ways. In countries with diverse populations, children are being born with combinations of genes that never existed before, combinations that produce new shades, new appearances, new expressions of human color. Some researchers have predicted that if current trends continue, the human population will become more uniform in appearance over time, a global averaging that blends the distinctive features of different populations into a common human form. Others are skeptical of this prediction, noting that people still tend to form families with others who are geographically and socially similar to themselves. and that global mixing is not as complete as it sometimes seems. Whatever happens, the human population of the future will be shaped by forces very different from those that shaped our past. Third, sexual selection may play an increasing role in the evolution of human appearance. Sexual selection refers to the preference of mates for certain traits. Preferences that can drive evolution even when those traits have no survival value. Throughout human history, different cultures have preferred different skin colours. Some have favoured light skin, associating it with beauty, status, or indoor living. Others have favoured darker skin, associating it with health, vigour, or outdoor work. These preferences are not universal or fixed. They vary across cultures and change over time. In a world where survival selection is weak, sexual selection may become relatively more important. If certain appearances are consistently preferred as attractive, the genes for those appearances may spread, not because they help survival, but because they help in finding mates. The evolution of human appearance may become increasingly driven by fashion, by culture, by the images we see in media and advertising. This is a strange and somewhat troubling possibility. The idea that human evolution could be steered by social forces rather than environmental necessity. But all of this is speculation about the future. Let me return to the past and to the present, and to the story of how humans became every colour. Here is what we know. All humans descend from African ancestors who had dark skin. As humans spread across the world, entering environments with different levels of UV radiation, skin colour evolved in response. In tropical regions, dark skin was maintained or re-evolved because it protected against UV damage and folate destruction. In high-latitude regions, light skin evolved because it allowed the production of vitamin D in weak sunlight. In intermediate regions, intermediate skin colours evolved, balancing the competing needs for protection and vitamin D synthesis. This evolution occurred multiple times, through multiple genetic pathways, on multiple continents. European light skin is different from East Asian light skin is different from the light skin found in some other populations. Dark skin in Africa is different from dark skin in Melanesia is different from dark skin in South Asia. The superficial similarity of colour masks deep genetic differences, just as the superficial difference of colour masks deep genetic similarities. The variation in human skin colour is a perfect example of adaptation, of how natural selection shapes organisms to fit their environments. It is also a perfect example of how superficial adaptation can be, how traits that seem so significant and meaningful are really just responses to local conditions, no more profound than the thickness of a polar bear's fur or the camouflage of a desert lizard. When you look at another human being, you're looking at a relative. Whatever the colour of their skin, they share ancestors with you. Go back far enough, and you share all ancestors with them. The differences you see are recent, superficial, and constantly changing. The similarities you cannot see are ancient, profound, and permanent. We are one species, one family, one people, painted in every colour by the accident of where our ancestors happen to live. This is the truth that the science of skin colour reveals. It is a truth that should humble us, should inspire us, should help us see past the divisions that have caused so much suffering. Skin colour is not destiny. It is not identity. It is not a marker of worth or potential. It is just melanin, just pigment, just the body's response to sunlight. Nothing more, nothing less. As you lie here tonight in the darkness, your skin is doing what human skin has always done. It is protecting you, containing you, holding together the miraculous collection of cells and organs that make you who you are. Your skin is brown or beige or pink or olive, dark or light, freckled or uniform. Whatever it is human skin. The same organ that covered your ancestors in Africa hundreds of thousands of years ago, the same organ that has adapted and changed as humans spread across the world. You carry the history of human migration in your genes. Somewhere in your DNA are the records of every environment your ancestors lived in, every adaptation they made, every change that natural selection wrought upon them. You are the current edition of a book that has been written and revised for 300,000 years. A palimpsest of human history written in the language of nucleotides. Let me tell you more about the personal meaning of this history. Let me help you see how the story of human colour is your story, how it connects you to every other human being, how it reveals the profound unity that underlies our apparent diversity. Whoever you are, whatever your skin colour, you're descended from the first humans in Africa. This is true for every human being alive. There are no exceptions. The darkest person and the lightest person share ancestors in Africa, ancestors who had dark skin, ancestors who lived under the equatorial sun and were shaped by its demands. This shared ancestry is not distant. In evolutionary terms, it is recent. In human terms, it is family. Your skin colour reflects the journey your ancestors took after leaving Africa or remaining in Africa. If you have dark skin, your ancestors probably lived in tropical regions, either staying in Africa or moving to other equatorial places like South Asia or Melanesia. If you have light skin, your ancestors probably lived in high latitude regions, in Europe or East Asia or the far north. If you have intermediate skin, your ancestors probably lived somewhere in between, or came from a mixture of different populations, but this is only part of the story. The history of human mixing means that almost everyone has ancestors from multiple places, multiple journeys, multiple environments. The apparent uniformity of skin colour in some populations masks underlying genetic diversity. The apparent diversity of skin colour in other populations masks underlying genetic similarity. The simple categories we use to classify people, white and black, Asian and African, native and foreign, do not capture the complex reality of human genetic history. Consider a person classified as white in the United States. They might have ancestors from Ireland and Germany, from Poland and Italy, from places that were considered different races a century ago, but are now grouped together as white. They might also have ancestors from Africa, from indigenous America, from Asia, ancestors whose contributions were hidden or forgotten, but whose genes persist. Genetic testing has revealed African ancestry in many Americans who consider themselves white indigenous ancestry, in many who had no idea, mixtures and blendings that the racial categories of the past were designed to hide. Consider a person classified as black in the United States. They might have ancestors from West Africa, where most enslaved people were taken, but also from Central Africa, East Africa, from every part of that enormous and diverse continent. They almost certainly have European ancestors too, given the history of slavery and its aftermath, and possibly indigenous American ancestors as well. The average African American has about 20% European ancestry, though this varies enormously from person to person. The category of black encompasses enormous genetic diversity, more diversity than exists in many populations considered to be separate races. The same is true everywhere in the world. Human populations have been mixing for as long as humans have existed. The pure races imagined by racial theorists never existed. There were always migrations, always mixing, always gene flow between populations. The boundaries that seem so clear on maps and in our minds dissolve when we look at the actual genetics, the actual history, the actual pattern of human movement and reproduction. This might seem to undermine identity, to erase the categories that people use to understand themselves and their place in the world. But I think it actually enriches identity, reveals it as more complex and more interesting than simple categories can capture. You're not just white or black or Asian. You're the product of countless ancestors from countless places, shaped by countless environments, carrying genes that have travelled across continents and millennia to combine in you. Your identity is not limited by the colour of your skin. Your identity is as vast as human history. Let me tell you about some specific cases that illuminate the complexity of human colour. There is a village in Pakistan where a significant portion of the population has light skin, light eyes, and features that would be classified as European in other contexts. Local legend attributes this to descent from the soldiers of Alexander the Great, who passed through this region over 2,000 years ago. Genetic studies have partially confirmed this, finding European genetic signatures in this population. The soldiers of Macedon left descendants whose appearance persists today, a trace of ancient history visible in modern faces. In Japan, the Ainu people, the indigenous inhabitants of the northern islands, have features that differ from the majority Japanese population. They tend to have lighter skin, more body hair, and features that have sometimes been described as almost European. The Ainu are a remnant of an ancient population that inhabited Japan before the arrival of peoples from the Asian mainland. Their appearance reflects this different history, this separate branch of the human family tree. In Africa, the San people, among the oldest human lineages, have a distinct appearance that includes lighter skin, epicanthic eye folds, and shorter stature. These features evolved in their ancestral population over tens of thousands of years, a separate experiment in human appearance conducted in the unique environment of southern Africa. The San are a reminder that human diversity in Africa exceeds human diversity everywhere else combined. In the Americas, the Tarahumara people of Mexico are renowned for their endurance running, competing in ultramarathons that would defeat most people. Their copper-brown skin is adapted to the high desert environments where they live. The Mapuche people of Chile, at the southern end of human settlement, have adapted to a very different environment. The diversity of indigenous American peoples from Arctic to Antarctic, from desert to rainforest, encompasses an enormous range of appearances, all descended from the same founding population that crossed from Asia thousands of years ago. In Brazil, a single family can include members with skin ranging from very dark to very light, hair from tightly curled to straight, features that would be classified as African, European, or indigenous in other contexts. Brazil's history of mixing among different populations has created a continuous spectrum of human appearance, defying the categorical thinking that prevails in other societies. A person's official racial category in Brazil is often not the same as their siblings, reflecting how arbitrary and contextual racial classification is. These examples could be multiplied endlessly. Every human population, every family, every individual has a story of how their appearance came to be, a story involving migration, adaptation, mixture, and the randomness of genetic recombination. No two people, except identical twins, have exactly the same combination of genes. Every human being is unique, a never-before-seen expression of human genetic possibility. Let me now address something that might be on your mind. Some people, when they learn about the evolution of human skin color, worry that this scientific explanation will be used to justify racism. After all, if skin color evolved as an adaptation, doesn't that mean that some colors are better than others? Doesn't that support the idea that some races are more evolved than others? No, absolutely not. This is a complete misunderstanding of how evolution works. Evolution is not progress. It does not produce better or worse organisms. It produces organisms that are adapted to their environments. A polar bear is not better than a tropical monkey. It is just better adapted to the Arctic. A cactus is not better than a water lily. It is just better adapted to the desert. And a light-skinned person is not better than a dark-skinned person. They are just better adapted to different UV environments. In fact, if we were to rank skin colors by any objective measure, dark skin might come out ahead. It provides better protection against skin cancer. It shows fewer signs of aging. It protects against the destruction of folate. The only advantage of light skin is vitamin D production, an advantage that can now be replicated by supplements, and that was only relevant in specific environments. If you removed a person with light skin and a person with dark skin from their ancestral environments and placed them both in a neutral setting, the person with dark skin would have fewer health disadvantages. But ranking skin colors is absurd. It is like ranking the colors of flowers or the songs of birds. Human skin color is diversity, not hierarchy. It is the expression of human adaptability, our species' ability to thrive in every environment from equator to Arctic. It is something to marvel at, not something to rank. The racists who have used evolution to justify their beliefs have always misunderstood or deliberately misrepresented what evolution actually shows. Evolution shows that all humans are closely related. Evolution shows that the differences between human populations are recent and superficial. Evolution shows that so-called racial traits like skin color are simple adaptations to local conditions, not markers of deeper biological differences. The science of human evolution is an argument against racism, not for it. Let me also address the question of racial identity. Some people, when they learn that race is not a biological reality in the way that folk categories suggest, worry that this undermines the identities of people who have built their sense of self around their race. If black is not a biological category, does that mean that black identity is meaningless? Number. This is another misunderstanding, this time of the relationship between biology and identity. Human identity is not determined by biology. It is shaped by history, culture, experience, community, and choice. Black identity in America is not based on any biological essence of blackness. It is based on the shared experience of being treated as black by American society, with all the history of discrimination and resilience that entails. It is based on cultural traditions that developed among people classified as black, music and literature and art and ways of being that emerge from that shared experience. It is based on family and community, on the ties that bind people who share a history. Understanding that skin color is an adaptation to sunlight does not erase this history or this identity. It just clarifies what skin color is and is not. Skin color is not destiny. It is not essence. It is not the source of cultural traits or intellectual capacities, but it has been used by societies to classify people, and that classification has had real consequences. Black identity is a response to those consequences, a way of making meaning out of a history of oppression and survival. Nothing in the science of skin color undermines this identity. If anything, the science strengthens it by exposing the arbitrariness of the racism that created the conditions for this identity to develop. The same is true for other racial and ethnic identities: white identity, Asian identity, Latinx identity, indigenous identity. All of these are social and historical phenomena, ways of making sense of shared experiences and shared histories. They are not biological facts, but they are not illusions either. They are real in the way that culture is real, that history is real, that community is real. The science of skin color does not erase them. It contextualizes them, showing that the boundaries between groups are permeable and changing, that the categories we use today are not eternal but contingent, that there are many ways to understand human diversity. The night is deepening now, and I want to bring this story toward its conclusion. I want to leave you with a sense of wonder at the history that made you, at the processes that painted humanity in every color, at the deep connections that link you to every other human being on this planet. You are the product of evolution, of natural selection, of adaptation. Your skin, whatever its color, is a testament to the journey your ancestors took, the environments they lived in, the challenges they faced and overcame. It connects you to the deep past, to the first humans in Africa, to the migrations that spread our species across the world. It is a badge of survival, proof that your lineage made it through everything that history threw at it. But you are more than your skin. You are consciousness and creativity, memory and imagination, love and hope and fear. You are the thoughts you're thinking right now, the feelings you're feeling, the person you're becoming. Your skin is just the outer layer, the wrapper, the surface. Beneath that surface, you are the same kind of being as every other human. A mind that can contemplate the universe, a heart that can love and grieve, a spirit that can aspire to greatness or kindness, or whatever you choose. The diversity of human skin color is beautiful. It is one of the glories of our species, this rainbow of appearance that we have become. A world in which everyone looked the same would be poorer, duller, less interesting. The variety of human faces and forms is something to celebrate, to appreciate, to marvel at. It is the visible expression of our species' success, our ability to adapt and thrive in every corner of the earth. But the diversity of human skin color is also superficial. It is literally skin deep. Beneath the surface, we are one. The same blood flows through veins of every color. The same heart beats in chests of every shade. The same brain thinks and dreams and wonders in heads of every hue. The differences that seem so important, that have been used to divide and conquer, that have justified so much cruelty, are nothing compared to the similarities that unite us. This is the truth that the story of human color reveals. We are one species, one family, one people. We have been painted in every color by the accident of evolution, by the chance of where our ancestors lived, by the requirements of sunlight and vitamin D and the protection of cells. These colors are part of who we are, part of our history, part of our identity, but they are not barriers. They are not boundaries. They are not reasons for hate or hierarchy. If you remember nothing else from this long story, remember this. Every human being is your relative. The person with the darkest skin and the person with the lightest skin are both cousins, separated by a few thousand generations at most. The history that separates us is short. The history that unites us is long. We come from the same place. We share the same ancestors. We are one family, scattered across the world, wearing different colors of the same skin. Sleep now, wearing the skin that evolution gave you. Whether it is dark or light, brown or beige or olive, it is human skin, the same organ that has protected our species for 300,000 years. It is a gift from your ancestors, a tool for survival, a marker of the journey that brought you here. Rest beneath it, safe and warm, connected to every human being who has ever lived, and every human being who ever will live. The story of human colour is your story. The rainbow of humanity is your family. The diversity of appearance is matched by a deeper unity of being. We are all human. We are all kin. We all became every colour together. The night is here, and sleep is waiting. Let the story settle into your mind. Let the truth of human unity sink into your heart. Tomorrow you will wake in a world full of human colour, a world full of your relatives, a world where every face you see carries the same evolutionary history, the same shared ancestry, the same fundamental humanity. Rest now in that knowledge. Rest in the family of humanity. Rest knowing that whatever you look like, you belong. The sun that once forced human skin to adapt now sets on a world of every colour. The moon that rises makes no distinctions, shining equally on dark and light. The stars that appear have watched over all the generations of humanity, from the first dark-skinned humans in Africa to the global rainbow of today. You are part of that rainbow. You are part of that story. You are human, and that is enough. That is everything. Sleep well, child of Africa. Sleep well, descendant of migrants. Sleep well, carrier of ancient genes and modern hopes. The story of how humans became every colour is complete, but your story continues, written in the skin you wear, the genes you carry, the life you live. But wait. Stay with me a little longer. There is so much more to tell, so many details that illuminate this story, so many threads that weave together to create the tapestry of human colour. Let me continue the journey. Let me take you deeper into the science and the history and the meaning of how we became every shade. Let me tell you about the specific genes that control skin colour, because understanding the mechanism helps you appreciate how remarkable this adaptation really is. The human genome contains about 20,000 genes, the instruction manual for building and maintaining a human body. Of these, perhaps 100 or more have some effect on skin colour, but a handful have effects so large that they account for most of the variation we see. The gene called SLC24A5 is perhaps the most important for light skin in Europeans. This gene codes for a protein involved in the production of melanin. A single change in this gene, a single letter difference in the DNA sequence, dramatically reduces melanin production. This variant is found in nearly all Europeans but is rare in Africans and East Asians. It appears to have arisen relatively recently, perhaps 10,000 years ago, and spread through European populations with remarkable speed. The speed of this spread tells us something about the strength of selection. For a genetic variant to go from rare to nearly universal in just a few hundred generations, it must provide a significant survival and reproductive advantage. In the case of SLC24A5, that advantage was almost certainly better vitamin D production in the low sunlight environment of Europe. People with this variant could absorb more UV radiation through their lighter skin, produce more vitamin D, and have healthier bones and immune systems. Their children were more likely to survive, more likely to reach adulthood, more likely to have children of their own. Another important gene is SLC45A2, which also affects melanin production. Like SLC24A5, it has a variant that is common in Europeans and rare elsewhere. Together, these two genes account for much of the difference in skin colour between Europeans and other populations. They are like the master switches that control the overall level of melanin, turning the dial from dark toward light. But these European genes are not the only path to light skin. East Asian populations have their own variants that produce light skin, variants that evolved independently from the European ones. The gene MFSD12, for example, has variants associated with light skin in East Asians that are different from the variants found in Europeans. This independent evolution shows that natural selection can find multiple solutions to the same problem, that there is more than one genetic path from dark to light. The genetics of dark skin is even more complex. In African populations, skin colour is controlled by many genes, each with relatively small effects. This is what geneticists call a polygenic trait, a trait influenced by numerous genes rather than dominated by a few. The complexity of African skin colour genetics reflects the long history of human evolution in Africa, the deep time during which these populations have been accumulating genetic variation. Some of the genes that affect skin colour in Africans are extremely ancient, older than our species itself. They appear to have been inherited from earlier human populations, perhaps from the common ancestor of all modern humans, perhaps even from more ancient ancestors. This ancient genetic heritage is part of what makes African populations so genetically diverse, so rich in variants that have been lost or were never present in populations outside Africa. Let me tell you about a fascinating study that illustrates this point. In 2017, researchers published a study of skin color genetics in diverse African populations. They found that some of the genetic variants associated with light skin in Africans, yes, light skin, even African populations show variation in skin color, were hundreds of thousands of years old, older than modern humans. These ancient variants were present in the human lineage before our species even evolved, inherited from ancestors who lived in Africa long before Homo sapiens appeared. This discovery upends the simple story that humans started with dark skin and evolved light skin only after leaving Africa. The reality is more complex. The genetic toolkit for both dark and light skin has been present in human populations for hundreds of thousands of years. Different populations have drawn on different parts of this toolkit, selecting for darker or lighter variants depending on their environment. The evolution of skin color is not a one-way street from dark to light, but a dynamic process in which populations can move in either direction as conditions change. Let me also tell you about the genetics of other aspects of appearance that often accompany skin color: hair color and texture, eye color, facial features. These traits are also controlled by genes, and some of these genes overlap with the genes that affect skin color. Hair color, for example, is affected by the same melanin that determines skin color. Eumelanin produces dark hair. Pheomelanin produces red and yellow tones. The ratio of these pigments, along with the structure of the hair shaft, determines whether hair appears black, brown, red, blonde, or some intermediate shade. The gene MC1R is particularly important for hair color. Variants of MC1R that reduce eumelanin production and increase pheomelanin production cause red hair and very fair skin. These variants are most common in Northern European populations, particularly in Scotland and Ireland, where up to 10% of the population has red hair. Blonde hair is another trait that has evolved multiple times independently. In European populations, blonde hair is associated with variants in the gene KITLG. But in the Solomon Islands of Melanesia, a population with very dark skin, a significant percentage of people have blonde hair. Genetic studies showed that their blonde hair is caused by a completely different gene variant, one that evolved independently in this isolated population. The Solomon Islanders are living proof that hair color and skin color are separate traits, that dark skin can come with light hair, that our simple categories of race do not capture the complexity of human appearance. Eye color is controlled by several genes, with OCA2 and HERC2 having the largest effects. These genes affect the amount of melanin in the iris, the colored part of the eye. High melanin produces brown eyes, low melanin produces blue or green eyes, intermediate levels produce hazel. Like skin and hair color, eye color varies along a spectrum with many intermediate shades possible. Blue eyes appear to have a single origin. All blue-eyed people share a common ancestor who lived somewhere around the Black Sea perhaps 8 to 10,000 years ago. A mutation in the HERC2 gene reduced the expression of OCA2, reducing melanin in the iris and producing blue eyes. This mutation spread through European populations, eventually becoming common, though it never reached the frequencies of the genes for light skin. About 8% of the world's population has blue eyes today, almost all of them of European descent or mixed European ancestry. The coincidence of timing is suggestive. Light skin, blonde hair, and blue eyes all seem to have become common in Europe around the same time, during or shortly after the transition to agriculture. This suggests that the dietary changes associated with farming, particularly the reduction in vitamin D from food sources, created strong selection pressure for traits that increased UV absorption. Light eyes, like light skin, may allow more UV radiation to penetrate the body, contributing to vitamin D synthesis. Or the spread of these traits may have been aided by sexual selection, with people preferring mates who had novel and distinctive appearances. Let me tell you now about the interaction between genetics and environment, because skin color is not entirely determined by genes. Even within a single individual, skin color can vary depending on sun exposure, hormones, and other factors. The most obvious environmental influence on skin color is tanning. When UV radiation hits the skin, it triggers increased melanin production, darkening the skin as a protective response. People differ in their tanning ability based on their genetics. Those with genes for low baseline melanin often have limited tanning ability and burn easily. Those with genes for moderate baseline melanin can tan significantly, developing protective pigmentation when exposed to sun. Those with genes for high baseline melanin are already well protected and show less dramatic tanning response. The ability to tan is itself an adaptation. It allows the skin to adjust to varying levels of UV exposure, providing more protection when needed while allowing more UV penetration when sunlight is weak. This flexibility is valuable in environments where UV levels change seasonally, which includes most of the temperate zone. The genes for tanning ability, like the genes for baseline skin color, were shaped by natural selection acting on populations in different environments. Hormones also affect skin color. During pregnancy, many women experience darkening of certain areas of skin, particularly around the nipples, the genitals, and sometimes the face, a condition called melasma, or the mask of pregnancy. This darkening is caused by increased production of melanocyte-stimulating hormone and other hormones that affect melanin production. The biological purpose of this pregnancy-related darkening is not entirely clear, but it demonstrates that skin color is dynamic, responding to internal as well as external signals. Age affects skin color as well. Many people become paler as they age, as melanocyte function declines and the skin produces less melanin. At the same time, accumulated sun damage can produce age spots, areas of concentrated melanin that appear as dark patches on aging skin. The skin of an elderly person tells the story of their life, the sun exposures they experienced, the environments they lived in, the years they have traveled. Disease can also affect skin color. Vitiligo is a condition in which the immune system attacks melanocytes, destroying them and producing patches of depigmented skin. Albinism is a genetic condition in which melanin production is severely reduced or absent, resulting in very pale skin, light hair, and pink or blue eyes. These conditions remind us that the melanin system, like all biological systems, can malfunction, and that normal skin color requires the proper functioning of many genes and cellular processes. Let me now take you on a journey through time, showing you what humans looked like at different points in our evolutionary history. This journey will help you understand how recent the current diversity of human color really is, and how quickly our species can change when selection pressure is strong. 300,000 years ago, when modern humans first appeared in Africa, everyone had dark skin. This is the ancestral condition, the baseline from which all subsequent diversity evolved. These first modern humans looked much like some Africans today, with features adapted to the African environment. Dark skin to protect against UV radiation, body proportions suited to hot climates, faces and skulls that fall within the range of modern human variation. 100,000 years ago, humans were still confined to Africa and the immediately adjacent areas of the Middle East. Skin color was still uniformly dark, because the environments humans inhabited were all high in UV radiation. There may have been some variation within this dark range, as there is in Africa today, but there were no light-skinned humans anywhere in the world. 70,000 years ago, humans began to spread more widely out of Africa. They moved along the coast of South Asia, reaching Southeast Asia and eventually Australia. These populations remained in tropical environments with high UV, and they retained dark skin. The ancestors of indigenous Australians and Melanesians had dark skin when they left Africa, and they still have dark skin today, having never experienced the selection pressure for lightening. 50,000 years ago, humans reached Europe and northern Asia. These populations entered high-latitude environments with weak sunlight for the first time. Selection for lighter skin began, but the process was slow. For tens of thousands of years, the humans living in Europe had skin that was darker than modern Europeans, though perhaps lighter than equatorial Africans. Ancient DNA confirms that European hunter-gatherers as recently as 8,000 years ago had darker skin than modern Europeans, often combined with blue eyes. 10,000 years ago, agriculture began to spread through Europe and Asia. The dietary changes associated with farming intensified selection for light skin, and the genes for very light skin began to spread rapidly. Within a few thousand years, light skin became common in European populations. Similar processes occurred in East Asia, though with different genes involved. 5,000 years ago, the human population was already highly diverse in skin color, with the major patterns we see today largely in place. Africans had dark skin. Europeans had light skin. East Asians had light skin. Middle Easterners and South Asians had intermediate skin. Indigenous Americans showed a gradient from lighter in the north to darker in the tropics. 500 years ago, the age of European exploration and colonization began, setting in motion a new phase of human mixing that continues today. Europeans, Africans, and indigenous peoples came into contact in the Americas. Europeans and Asians came into contact along trade routes and in colonial settlements. The isolation that had allowed different populations to evolve different appearances was breaking down, and new populations with mixed ancestry began to emerge. Today, the human population is more connected and more mixed than ever before. People from every part of the world live in the same cities, work in the same offices, form families together. The isolation that shaped human diversity in the past is giving way to a new era of connection and mixing. The future of human skin colour is uncertain, but it will certainly be shaped by these new patterns of contact and reproduction. Let me tell you some specific stories of individuals and populations that illustrate the complexity and fascination of human colour. There is the story of the Fulani people of West Africa, who have lighter skin than many of their neighbours. The Fulani are traditionally cattle herders, and their lighter skin has puzzled researchers. One theory is that their lighter skin is an adaptation to their pastoral lifestyle, which involves consuming milk, which provides vitamin D, reducing the need for UV-synthesized vitamin D and allowing lighter skin to evolve. Another theory involves migration, suggesting that the Fulani have ancestry from North Africa or elsewhere that contributes to their lighter skin. The truth is probably complex, involving multiple factors that we do not yet fully understand. There is the story of the Kalash people of Pakistan, who live in remote valleys of the Hindu Kush Mountains. The Kalash have lighter skin and lighter eyes than the surrounding populations, and some have blonde or light brown hair. They have preserved a unique religion and culture that predates Islam in the region. Genetic studies have confirmed that they have some European-related ancestry, possibly from ancient migrations, possibly from more recent contact. The Kalash are a living reminder that human populations have been mixing and moving for as long as humans have existed, that no population is truly isolated or pure. There is the story of the Cheddar Man, a skeleton found in a cave in England that dates to about 10,000 years ago. When scientists extracted DNA from this skeleton and analysed it, they found that Cheddar Man had dark skin and blue eyes, a combination that would be unusual in Britain today. This discovery made headlines around the world, challenging assumptions about what ancient Britons looked like. Cheddar Man was a reminder that the pale skin of modern British people is a recent development, that the ancestors of today's Europeans looked quite different from their descendants. There is the story of the Tarim mummies, preserved bodies found in the deserts of western China that date to about 4,000 years ago. These mummies have European-like features, including tall stature, light hair, and possibly light eyes. They appear to be related to populations from the steppes of Central Asia rather than to East Asian populations. Their presence in China shows that the modern distribution of human appearances is not ancient, that different populations have lived in different places at different times, that the map of human diversity has been redrawn repeatedly throughout history. There is the story of the Andaman Islanders, indigenous people of islands in the Bay of Bengal, who have lived in isolation for perhaps 50,000 years. The Andamanese have very dark skin, similar to Africans, but they are not closely related to Africans. They are descended from the early human migrations out of Africa, and their dark skin is an example of convergent evolution, the independent retention of dark pigmentation in a tropical environment. The Andamanese remind us that skin colour reflects environment, not ancestry, that populations can have similar colours for entirely different genetic reasons. There is the story of the Ainu of Japan, the indigenous people of the northern Japanese islands. The Ainu have lighter skin and more body hair than most East Asian populations. They were once thought to be related to Europeans, but genetic studies have shown that they are an ancient East Asian population, distinct from the people who now form the majority of Japan's population. The Ainu are a reminder that East Asia, like every other region, contains diverse populations with different appearances, that the simple category of Asian conceals enormous variation. Each of these stories complicates the simple narratives we often tell about human colour. The reality is always more complex than the categories we use to organise it. Human populations have been mixing and moving and adapting for hundreds of thousands of years, and the patterns we see today are just the latest snapshot in a constantly changing picture. Let me tell you about the future of human skin colour, though this requires speculation rather than certainty. If current trends continue, the human population will likely become more uniform in appearance over time. Global migration and mixing are blending genes that were once geographically separated. In multiracial societies, people are increasingly having children with partners from different backgrounds, producing offspring who carry genes from multiple continents. Over many generations, this mixing could produce a more homogeneous human population, one in which the extreme light and dark skin of the past become rarer, replaced by intermediate shades. But this is not certain. People still tend to marry within their own communities, and geographic and social barriers to mixing remain significant in many parts of the world. Even in diverse societies, racial endogamy, the tendency to marry within one's own racial group, remains common. The rate of mixing may be slower than some predictions suggest, and the diversity of human colour may persist far into the future. Climate change could also affect the evolution of skin colour, though the effects are hard to predict. If humans continue to live in environments very different from their ancestral ones, selection pressure for skin colour change could continue. But modern technology, including vitamin D supplements, sunscreen, and climate-controlled buildings, may weaken these selection pressures. We may be entering an era in which human evolution is shaped more by cultural and technological factors than by environmental ones. Sexual selection could become more important in shaping human appearance. In a world where survival selection is weak, preferences for certain appearances could drive evolution. Media and advertising create ideals of beauty that are broadcast globally, potentially influencing mate preferences on a worldwide scale. Whether this will lead to convergence on a single standard of beauty or to the diversification of beauty standards remains to be seen. Whatever happens, the humans of the future will carry the legacy of the past in their genes. The adaptations that evolved over tens of thousands of years, the genes for light and dark skin, for different hair textures and eye colours, for the whole range of human appearance, these genes will persist, recombining in new ways, producing new patterns, continuing the experiment in human diversity that began when the first humans left Africa. Let me now speak more personally about what this story means for you, the person listening to this in the darkness, drifting towards sleep. Your skin colour, whatever it is, tells a story. It tells the story of where your ancestors lived, what environments they adapted to, what challenges they faced. It is a record of evolution, a badge of survival, a marker of the journey that brought you into existence. It connects you to the past, to the generations who came before you, whose genes combined and recombined until they produced you. But your skin colour is not the most important thing about you. It is just one trait among thousands, one feature among countless features that make you who you are. It does not determine your intelligence or your character, your abilities, or your potential. It is just melanin, just pigment, just the body's response to ancestral sunlight. The diversity of human skin colour is beautiful. It is one of the things that makes humanity as a whole so fascinating, this spectrum of shades that our species has become. But the diversity is superficial. Beneath the different colours, we are all the same kind of being, all capable of the same thoughts and feelings, all equally human. When you meet someone whose skin colour is different from yours, you are meeting a relative. You share ancestors with them. You share the vast majority of your genes with them. The differences between you are recent, superficial, and constantly changing. The similarities between you are ancient, profound, and permanent. You are family. This is the message of the science of human colour. We are one species, one family, one people. The colours that divide us visually are nothing compared to the genes that unite us biologically. The categories we use to sort ourselves, the races and ethnicities and nationalities are social constructions, useful for some purposes but ultimately arbitrary. The truth is simpler and more profound. We are all human, all descendants of the same African ancestors, all members of the same evolutionary experiment. Rest in that knowledge tonight. Rest in the family of humanity. Rest knowing that your skin, whatever its colour, is human skin, the same organ that has covered our species for 300,000 years. Rest knowing that you belong to the rainbow, that you're one colour in the spectrum, that the spectrum would be incomplete without you. The night continues, and so does our story. Let me take you deeper still into the history and science of human colour, into the details that make this story so rich and so meaningful. Let me tell you about the role of diet in the evolution of skin colour, because what humans ate played a crucial role in determining what they needed from sunlight. In Africa, the ancestral human diet included a wide variety of foods, plants and animals, fruits and roots, whatever was available in the rich and diverse ecosystems of the continent. This diet provided some vitamin D, particularly from fish and animal fat, but not enough to meet all the body's needs. Fortunately, the abundant African sunlight ensured that even dark-skinned people could produce sufficient vitamin D through their skin. Diet and sunlight worked together to maintain health. When humans migrated to coastal areas, their diet often shifted to include more fish and marine animals. These foods are rich in vitamin D, so populations living on fish could maintain adequate vitamin D even with dark skin in moderate latitudes. This may explain why some coastal populations have darker skin than might otherwise be expected for their latitude. The Inuit of the Arctic, for example, have relatively dark skin for their extremely high latitude, but their traditional diet of fish, seals, and whale blubber provides so much vitamin D that skin synthesis is less critical. The shift to agriculture changed everything. Farming populations relied heavily on grains and domesticated plants, which provide almost no vitamin D. They also ate less fish and wild game, the foods that had supplemented UV-synthesized vitamin D in hunter-gatherer diets, and they spent more time indoors, working with stored crops, reducing their exposure to whatever sunlight was available. The transition to agriculture intensified the selection pressure for light skin in populations living in low sunlight environments. This explains the timing of light skin evolution in Europe. The first Europeans had darker skin. They were hunter-gatherers eating fish and game, spending their lives outdoors. Light skin evolved rapidly only after agriculture arrived, when the diet changed and the need for UV-synthesized vitamin D became critical. The genes for light skin spread through farming populations like a wave, carried by the same expansion of agriculture that was transforming human society in so many other ways. The same process may have occurred in other regions where agriculture reduced dietary vitamin D. The light skin of East Asians may have evolved in connection with the spread of rice farming, which provided abundant calories but little vitamin D. The correlation between agriculture and light skin is strong, suggesting that diet was a key driver of skin color evolution. Today, in the modern world, diet has become disconnected from geography. People in high latitudes can eat tropical fruits shipped from around the world. People in the tropics can eat fish frozen thousands of miles away. Vitamin D supplements are available in any pharmacy, providing the nutrient regardless of sun exposure or diet. These changes have weakened the selection pressures that shaped skin color in the past, potentially slowing or stopping the evolution of this trait. Let me tell you about the cultural meanings that humans have attached to skin color, because these meanings have shaped human history as much as any biological factor. Throughout history, societies have assigned meanings to skin color, interpretations that reflect social structures and power relationships more than any biological reality. In many societies, light skin was associated with elite status, because elites did not have to work outdoors in the sun. Dark skin was associated with labor, with the outdoor work of farmers and herders. These associations reverse the biological reality, treating light skin as superior when it was actually a disadvantage in high sunlight environments. In ancient China, light skin was prized among women as a sign of beauty and refinement. Women of the court used powders and cosmetics to lighten their appearance, and poets praised pale skin as a mark of feminine virtue. Similar preferences existed in ancient Japan, in India, in Persia, in many cultures around the world. The preference for light skin predated contact with Europeans and had nothing to do with racial categorization as we understand it today. It was about class and labor, about distinguishing elites from commoners. In Europe, the preference for light skin became entangled with colonialism and racial ideology. As Europeans conquered and colonized much of the world, they developed theories that justified their dominance as natural and right. These theories portrayed dark skin as inferior, as a mark of primitive peoples destined to be ruled by civilized Europeans. The pseudoscience of race, which claimed to identify distinct human types with different abilities, was used to justify slavery, segregation, and genocide. The effects of these ideologies persist today. In many societies, light skin is still associated with beauty, success, and desirability. The global market for skin-lightening products is worth billions of dollars, driven by people who seek to lighten their appearance in conformity with these culturally constructed ideals. The preference for light skin causes real harm, from the health risks of dangerous lightening products to the psychological damage of being told that your natural appearance is inferior. But these preferences are not universal or inevitable. They are cultural constructions that vary across societies and change over time. In the West, tanned skin has become fashionable in recent decades, a reversal of the historic preference for paleness. In some African and Caribbean cultures, dark skin is celebrated as beautiful and powerful. The meanings attached to skin color are human inventions, and humans can reinvent them. Understanding the evolution of skin color can help in this reinvention. If we know that skin color is simply an adaptation to UV radiation, nothing more, we can see through the cultural meanings that have been attached to it. We can recognize that these meanings are arbitrary, that they reflect social history rather than biological reality, that they can and should be changed. The science of skin color is a tool for liberation, a way of clearing away the lies that have been used to justify oppression. Let me tell you about some of the scientists who have contributed to our understanding of human skin color, because their work has transformed how we think about human diversity. Nina Jablonski is a biological anthropologist who has spent decades studying the evolution of human skin color. Her research has demonstrated the relationship between skin color and UV radiation, showing how human populations have adapted to different light environments around the world. She has also explored the cultural meanings of skin color and has worked to combat the racist ideologies that have grown up around human color variation. Her book, Living Color: The Biological and Social Meaning of Skin Color, is a definitive account of this subject. Sarah Tishkoff is a geneticist who has conducted groundbreaking studies of genetic diversity in African populations. Her research has revealed the complexity of skin color genetics in Africa, showing that the genetic basis of African skin color is very different from what was known from studies of European populations. She has discovered ancient genetic variants affecting skin color that predate the evolution of modern humans, expanding our understanding of the deep history of human appearance. Pardis Sabeti is a geneticist and evolutionary biologist who has developed methods for detecting natural selection in the human genome. Her work has revealed which genes have been under strong selection in recent human evolution, including genes affecting skin color. She has shown how rapidly these genes can spread through populations when selection is strong, demonstrating the power of natural selection to reshape human appearance in just a few thousand years. These scientists and many others have built the understanding of human skin color that I have been sharing with you tonight. Their work is ongoing, and new discoveries continue to refine and complicate the picture. The science of skin color is a living field, always advancing, always revealing new complexities in the story of how humans became every color. Let me tell you about some of the implications of this science for medicine and health, because skin color has important consequences for human well-being. Skin cancer risk varies dramatically with skin color. People with light skin are much more likely to develop skin cancers, including the deadly melanoma, than people with dark skin. This is because melanin protects against the DNA damage caused by UV radiation, damage that can lead to cancer. In high sunlight environments, light skin is a significant health risk. Australians of European descent have the highest rates of skin cancer in the world, far higher than Indigenous Australians whose dark skin provides natural protection. Vitamin D deficiency is more common in dark-skinned people living in low sunlight environments. In Northern Europe and North America, people with dark skin often have lower vitamin D levels than people with light skin, because their skin absorbs less of the weak UV radiation available. Vitamin D deficiency can lead to bone problems, immune dysfunction, and possibly increased risk of certain diseases. Dark-skinned people in northern climates may need to take vitamin D supplements to maintain adequate levels. Some medical conditions present differently in skin of different colors. The reddening that signals inflammation is easily visible in light skin but may be missed in dark skin. Some skin conditions, like certain rashes, look different in dark skin than in light skin, and doctors trained primarily on light-skinned patients may miss diagnoses in dark-skinned patients. There is growing recognition that medical education needs to include more examples of how conditions present across the full range of human skin colors. The dermatology profession has historically been biased toward light skin, with textbooks and training focused primarily on European skin types. This bias has led to poorer outcomes for dark-skinned patients, who may be misdiagnosed or undertreated because their doctors do not recognize how conditions look on their skin. Efforts are underway to diversify dermatological education and to ensure that the full range of human skin colours is represented in medical training. Psychological health is also affected by skin colour through the social meanings attached to it. People who are discriminated against because of their skin colour suffer psychological harm, including increased rates of depression, anxiety, and stress-related illness. The stress of experiencing racism, whether overt or subtle, accumulates over time and affects physical as well as mental health. This is not a biological effect of skin colour itself, but a social effect of how skin colour is treated in racist societies. Let me now take you through a day in the life of human skin to help you appreciate the remarkable organ that covers your body and that we have been discussing all night. Your skin wakes with you in the morning, or perhaps it never truly slept, maintaining its functions through the night. While you were unconscious, your skin was busy. It was producing new cells in its deepest layer, cells that will gradually move toward the surface over the coming weeks, replacing the dead cells that are constantly shed from the outer layer. It was synthesizing proteins that maintain the skin's structure and flexibility. It was hosting the microbiome, the community of microorganisms that live on your skin and contribute to its health. When you get out of bed and light hits your skin, your melanocytes begin to respond. If you have light skin and spend time in the sun, they will ramp up melanin production, beginning the process of tanning. If you have dark skin, they are already producing abundant melanin, maintaining the protection that your ancestors evolved. As you go through your day, your skin protects you constantly. It forms a barrier against pathogens, keeping bacteria and viruses out of your body. It regulates your temperature, producing sweat to cool you when you are hot, conserving heat when you are cold. It senses the world around you, sending signals to your brain about pressure, temperature, pain, and texture. It holds you together, literally, keeping your insides in and the outside out. When you return home in the evening, your skin carries the record of your day. If you were in the sun, it may be slightly darker, or slightly reddened if you're prone to burning. If you were in dry air, it may be slightly dehydrated. If you exercised, it may still be warm from the effort. Your skin is a living interface with the world, constantly changing in response to conditions. At night, as you prepare for sleep, your skin shifts into repair mode. Growth hormone is released during sleep, and this hormone stimulates skin cell production and repair. The damage of the day, the minor injuries and irritations, begins to heal. If you are getting enough sleep, your skin will show it, looking healthier and more vibrant. If you are sleep deprived, your skin will show that too, appearing dull and aged. This cycle repeats every day, the constant work of an organ that we often take for granted. Your skin is approximately 20 square feet of living tissue, the largest organ in your body. It accounts for about 15% of your body weight. It renews itself completely every few weeks, the dead outer cells flaking away and being replaced by new cells from below. By the time you die, you will have shed about 40 pounds of skin cells, creating the household dust that settles on furniture and floors. Your skin carries the history of your species, the adaptations that allowed your ancestors to survive in whatever environment they lived in. It carries your personal history too, the scars and marks that record your individual journey through life. It is simultaneously universal, the same organ in every human, and unique, marked by your particular combination of genes and experiences. Let me tell you about some of the remarkable adaptations of human skin beyond colour, because skin is a multifunctional organ that has evolved to serve many needs. Human skin is almost hairless compared to other primates. Our ancestors lost their body hair millions of years ago, possibly as an adaptation for cooling in the hot African savanna, possibly for other reasons that scientists still debate. This hairlessness made melanin protection more important, because hair also provides some UV protection. The evolution of dark skin in humans may be related to the loss of body hair, two changes that occurred together as our ancestors adapted to a life in the open sun. Human skin contains sweat glands that allow us to cool through evaporation. We have more sweat glands than almost any other mammal, and our ability to sweat allows us to regulate body temperature during extended physical activity. This cooling system may have been crucial for our ancestors on the African savanna, allowing them to hunt in the heat of the day when other predators rested. Human skin is remarkably good at healing. Cuts and scrapes that would scar other organs heal almost completely on skin, with new tissue filling in the wound and surface cells growing over to cover it. This healing ability would have been crucial for our ancestors, who faced constant minor injuries from thorns, rocks, and rough surfaces. Skin infections can be serious, but healthy skin fights them off with a combination of physical barriers and immune cells stationed in the skin. Human skin changes with age. Infants have soft, smooth skin that is particularly sensitive. Children's skin grows rapidly to keep up with their growing bodies. Adolescent skin becomes oilier as hormone levels change, often leading to acne. Adult skin gradually loses elasticity and moisture, developing wrinkles and age spots over time. Elderly skin is thinner and more fragile, more easily injured and slower to heal. These changes are universal, occurring in all human populations regardless of skin color. Human skin varies not just in color, but in thickness, oiliness, and other properties. Skin on the palms and soles is thick and tough, able to withstand friction. Skin on the eyelids is thin and delicate. Skin on the face is densely packed with oil glands, which is why facial skin often looks different from skin elsewhere on the body. These variations exist in all humans, underlying the more visible variation in color. Let me tell you about the future of skin science, because researchers are working on technologies that may transform how we think about and care for our skin. Scientists are developing new sunscreens that provide better protection against UV radiation, including broad-spectrum protection that blocks both UVA and UVB rays. Some researchers are working on sunscreens that not only block UV but actively repair DNA damage, using enzymes derived from bacteria and other organisms that are particularly good at DNA repair. Gene therapy may eventually allow modification of skin color, either temporarily or permanently. Researchers are exploring ways to manipulate the genes that control melanin production, potentially allowing people to darken their skin before traveling to sunny locations or lighten it during dark winters. This technology is still far in the future, but it suggests a world in which skin color could become a choice rather than a fixed characteristic. Artificial skin is being developed for burn victims and others who have lost large areas of skin to injury or disease. This lab-grown skin can replace natural skin in covering wounds and protecting the body. Current artificial skin is imperfect, lacking the full functionality of natural skin, but it is improving rapidly. Future artificial skin may be indistinguishable from the natural organ. The microbiome of the skin, the community of bacteria and other microorganisms that live on our bodies, is being studied for its role in skin health. Some researchers believe that many skin conditions from acne to eczema may be related to imbalances in the skin microbiome. Treatments that restore a healthy microbiome, rather than killing bacteria indiscriminately, may become common in the future. As we learn more about skin, we gain greater appreciation for this remarkable organ. Your skin is not just a wrapper or a covering, it is an active participant in your life, sensing and responding and protecting. It is the visible interface between you and the world, the first thing others see when they look at you. It is worth caring for, worth protecting, worth appreciating. The hour grows late, and sleep grows near. Let me begin to bring this story to its close, weaving together the threads into a final tapestry. The story of how humans became every color is a story about evolution, about natural selection shaping our species to fit different environments. It is a story about migration, about our ancestors spreading across the world and adapting as they went. It is a story about genes, about the specific DNA sequences that control melanin production and that vary between populations. It is a story about diet, about how what we eat affects what we need from sunlight. It is a story about culture, about the meanings we have attached to color and how those meanings have shaped human history. But most of all, it is a story about unity. The diversity of human color seems to divide us, to mark us as different types, to separate us into categories. But the truth beneath the surface is unity. We are all one species. We all descend from the same African ancestors. We all share the vast majority of our genes. The differences between us are recent, superficial, and constantly changing. The unity that binds us is ancient, deep, and permanent. Your skin, whatever its color, connects you to every other human being. It is made of the same cells, controlled by the same genes, evolved through the same process. It differs in shade but not in kind. It is the same organ in every human body, performing the same functions, subject to the same diseases, aging in the same way. When you look at another person, no matter how different their skin color may seem, you're looking at a variation on yourself, a different expression of the same human template. The rainbow of human color is beautiful. It is the result of our species' remarkable adaptability, our ability to thrive in every environment from equator to Arctic. It is a testament to the power of evolution, the way that natural selection can reshape organisms in response to changing conditions. It is part of what makes humanity as a whole so fascinating, this spectrum of appearance that we have become. But the rainbow is also superficial. It is skin deep, literally. Beneath the different colours, we are the same. The same bones and muscles, the same organs and systems, the same brain that thinks and feels and wonders. The colour of our skin tells us nothing about our intelligence or our character, our abilities or our worth. It tells us only about the environments our ancestors lived in, the UV levels they experienced, the balance between folate protection and vitamin D synthesis that shaped their evolution. Understanding this can free us from the lies that have been told about human colour. The racists who claimed that skin colour marked deeper differences, that some colours were superior to others, were wrong. The science is clear. Skin colour is an adaptation to sunlight, nothing more. It does not determine destiny. It does not limit potential. It is not a reason for discrimination or hierarchy or hate. The future of human colour is in our hands. We can continue to attach false meanings to melanin, to treat skin colour as if it determined worth, to divide ourselves into categories that have no biological basis. Or we can embrace the truth that science reveals, that we are one species, one family, one people. We can celebrate the diversity of human appearance while recognizing the deeper unity that it cannot conceal. We can build a world in which skin colour is just one feature among many, no more significant than height or eye colour, or the shape of one's ears. That world is possible. It is within our reach. It begins with understanding, with knowing the truth about how humans became every colour. It continues with action, with challenging the racism and colorism that persist in our societies. It culminates in a future where the colour of your skin is no more determinative of your fate than the colour of your hair. Sleep now, child of Africa. Sleep, descendant of migrants. Sleep, carrier of genes that have travelled around the world to combine in you. Your skin is beautiful, whatever its colour. It is the record of your ancestors' journey, the mark of their survival, the legacy of evolution working through countless generations. It connects you to the past and the future, to your ancestors who came before and your descendants who may come after. Rest beneath your skin tonight, safe and warm. Let the melanocytes do their work, producing the pigment that protects you or not, depending on your genes. Let your skin sense the softness of your bed, the temperature of the air, the presence of warmth and safety. Let it hold you together as it has always held humans together, the boundary between self and world. And when you wake, look at the world with new eyes. See the rainbow of humanity as what it really is, not a division but a spectrum, not categories but variations, not races but family. See every face as a relative's face, every skin colour as a marker of a different journey to the same place, every human being as your kin. The story of how humans became every colour is your story. It is written in your genes, expressed in your skin, carried forward by your life. You are one colour in the spectrum, one note in the chord, one thread in the tapestry. The spectrum would be incomplete without you. But stay a little longer. The story is not quite complete. There are still threads to weave, still details to illuminate, still depths to explore in this vast subject of human colour. Let me tell you about the experience of living in skin that does not match the society around you. This is a reality for millions of people around the world, people whose skin colour marks them as different in the places where they live, people who navigate daily the gap between their appearance and the expectations of those around them. Consider the experience of a dark-skinned person living in a predominantly light-skinned society. From childhood, such a person learns that they are seen as different, that their skin colour is noticed and often judged. They may encounter discrimination, subtle or overt, in housing and employment, in interactions with police and authority figures, in the casual assumptions of strangers. They may be asked where they are really from, no matter how many generations their family has lived in that place. They may feel the weight of being a representative of their entire race, as if their individual actions reflect on all people who share their colour. This experience is not universal. It depends on place and time, on the specific social context. In a predominantly dark-skinned society, it is light-skinned people who may feel out of place, who may experience discrimination or unwanted attention. The experience of skin color is always social, always contextual, never simply a matter of biology. But the experience of difference is real, and it shapes lives. People who grow up being treated as other because of their skin color develop different perspectives, different awareness, different ways of moving through the world. They may develop resilience, the ability to persist in the face of prejudice. They may develop what scholars call double consciousness, the ability to see themselves both as they are and as society sees them. They may develop deep critique of the systems that disadvantage them, or they may internalize the prejudices of the society around them, believing that there is something wrong with them rather than with the society. The psychological effects of racism and colorism are well documented. Discrimination is a stressor that affects mental and physical health. The constant vigilance required to navigate a hostile environment takes a toll on the body. People who experience regular discrimination show elevated cortisol levels, higher rates of depression and anxiety, poorer health outcomes across multiple measures. This is not about skin color itself, but about how skin color is treated by society. In a just society, one that did not discriminate based on color, these health disparities would not exist. Children are particularly vulnerable to the effects of colorism. Studies have shown that children as young as 3 begin to absorb the racial biases of the society around them, associating light skin with positive qualities and dark skin with negative ones. This happens even among dark-skinned children, who may internalize negative views of their own color. The famous Clark doll studies, conducted in the 1940s, showed that black children often preferred white dolls to black ones, indicating internalized racism that began before they even entered school. Efforts to combat these effects include representation, showing children positive images of people who look like them. They include education, teaching children about the true history and science of human color. They include affirmation, explicitly valuing the diversity of human appearance. They include systemic change, addressing the discrimination and inequality that give rise to colorism in the first place. Progress has been made on all these fronts, but much remains to be done. Let me tell you about colorism within communities of color, because discrimination based on skin color is not only a matter of white versus non-white. Within many communities, including African American, Latino, South Asian and East Asian communities, lighter skin is often privileged over darker skin. This intra-group colorism can be just as damaging as intergroup racism. In African American communities, the legacy of slavery includes a history of colorism in which lighter-skinned slaves were sometimes given preferential treatment, working in houses rather than fields, receiving better food and clothing. After slavery, these preferences continued, with lighter-skinned black people often having greater access to education, employment, and social acceptance. The brown paper bag test, in which admission to certain clubs and organizations depended on having skin lighter than a brown paper bag, is a stark example of this colorism. Although such explicit tests are rare today, preferences for lighter skin persist, affecting dating, hiring, and social advancement. In South Asian communities, colorism has deep roots. The preference for light skin predates colonialism, appearing in ancient texts that associate lightness with beauty and high caste. The caste system, with its linkage of lighter skin to higher status, reinforced these preferences over centuries. Today, the market for skin lightening products is enormous in India and surrounding countries, driven by the belief that lighter skin leads to better marriage prospects and career opportunities. Advertisements for these products reinforce colorist messages, suggesting that dark-skinned people are less attractive, less successful, less worthy of love. In East Asian communities, particularly in China, Japan, and Korea, light skin has long been associated with beauty and refinement. Historical preferences for paleness were about class, about avoiding the darkening of the outdoor labor, but they have persisted and evolved. Today, the K-beauty industry exports skin-lightening products and procedures around the world, and beauty standards that prize paleness influence young people across Asia and beyond. In Latino communities, colorism intersects with the complex racial categories that developed during colonialism. Terms like mestizo, mulatto, and criollo originally described degrees of European, indigenous, and African ancestry, with lighter-skinned, more European-appearing individuals generally having higher status. Today, Latino communities span the full spectrum of human color, and colorism persists, with lighter-skinned Latinos often receiving preferential treatment. Addressing intra-group colorism requires honest conversation about difficult histories. It requires recognition that these preferences are not natural or inevitable, but are products of specific historical circumstances. It requires challenging the beauty standards that are internalized from childhood, the media images that reinforce preferences for lightness, the social systems that advantage some skin tones over others. It is work that communities of color are increasingly taking on, naming colorism as a problem and working to overcome it. Let me tell you about some of the movements and activists who have worked to challenge colorism and celebrate the full diversity of human color. The Black is Beautiful movement of the 1960s and 1970s explicitly challenged the devaluation of dark skin and African features. Activists promoted natural hairstyles like the afro, celebrating African heritage rather than conforming to European beauty standards. The slogan "Black is Beautiful" was a direct response to centuries of messages that black features were ugly or inferior. This movement helped a generation of African Americans see their own beauty and reject the colorist standards of the dominant culture. More recently, the Dark is Beautiful campaign in India has challenged the colorism of South Asian society. Launched in 2009, this campaign has worked to change attitudes toward dark skin, particularly through media representation. It has challenged skin-lightening advertisements and called on Bollywood celebrities to stop endorsing these products. The campaign has had some success in raising awareness, though the skin-lightening industry remains enormous. The natural hair movement among black women has reclaimed African hair textures as beautiful and professional. For decades, many black women felt pressure to straighten their hair chemically or with heat, conforming to European standards of straight or wavy hair. The natural hair movement has celebrated curls, coils, kinks, and locks, promoting acceptance of the full range of African hair textures. This movement has connected to broader movements for racial justice, recognizing that beauty standards are political and that challenging them is part of challenging racism. Social media has become a platform for challenging colorism and celebrating diversity. Hashtags like #MelaninMagic and #MelaninPoppin celebrate dark skin. Instagram accounts devoted to diverse beauty standards reach millions of followers. Young people are increasingly exposed to images of beauty that include the full range of human color, not just the narrow range privileged in traditional media. This is slow work, but it is happening. Let me tell you about the science of beauty, because understanding why we find certain appearances attractive can help us see through the cultural biases that shape our preferences. Some aspects of attractiveness appear to be universal. Symmetry, for example, is considered attractive across cultures, possibly because it signals developmental health. Averageness, faces that are close to the population average, is also considered attractive, possibly because it signals genetic diversity. Clear skin, bright eyes, healthy hair, these are valued across cultures because they signal health and vitality. But other aspects of attractiveness vary dramatically across cultures and over time. Body size preferences, for example, range from very thin to very fat depending on the culture and its economic conditions. Skin color preferences vary widely, with different cultures favoring different shades at different times. These variable preferences are cultural, not biological. They are learned from the society around us, not hardwired in our genes. Understanding the difference between universal and variable aspects of attractiveness can help us recognize when we are being influenced by cultural biases. If you find certain skin colors more attractive than others, that preference was probably learned. It is a product of the images you have been exposed to, the messages you have received, the standards you have internalized. Like any learned preference, it can be unlearned, expanded, changed. Beauty can become more democratic as we become more aware of the biases that shape our perceptions. The science of attractiveness also reveals that familiarity breeds liking. We tend to find familiar things more attractive than unfamiliar things, a phenomenon called the mere exposure effect. This means that people who are exposed primarily to one type of appearance may find that type more attractive simply because it is familiar. But it also means that as we become more exposed to diverse appearances, our sense of beauty can expand. Diverse media representation is not just politically important, it is psychologically important, reshaping what we find attractive as we become more familiar with the full range of human appearance. Let me tell you about some of the ways that skin color is used in art and literature. because these cultural expressions both reflect and shape how we think about human colour. In Western art, skin colour has been used to indicate race, status, and moral qualities. Renaissance paintings often depicted dark skin in association with evil or servitude, while light skin was associated with purity and nobility. These artistic conventions were not neutral. They reinforced the racial ideologies of the time, teaching viewers to associate darkness with negative qualities. The effects of these conventions persist in how we interpret images today. In literature, skin colour has been used as a marker of character and fate. Racist literature has depicted dark-skinned characters as villains, savages, or comic relief, while heroic and romantic roles were reserved for light-skinned characters. Even in more enlightened literature, skin colour has often been used as a shorthand, a way of indicating race and triggering the reader's associations without having to describe them explicitly. This reliance on stereotypes limits how literature represents human diversity. But art and literature have also challenged colorism and celebrated diversity. The Harlem Renaissance produced visual art and literature that celebrated black beauty and culture. African and African diasporic artists have created works that show the full range of black experience, including the beauty of dark skin. Contemporary artists of colour are creating new representations, new images, new stories that expand how human colour is seen and understood. Photography has played a complex role in the representation of human colour. For decades, photographic technology was calibrated to light skin, producing poor quality images of dark-skinned people. Film stocks and lighting standards were designed with European skin tones in mind, making it literally harder to photograph dark skin well. This technical bias reinforced artistic and social biases, making it difficult for dark-skinned people to be represented well in photographs and film. The film industry has recently begun to address these technical issues, developing lighting techniques and camera settings that work well for all skin tones. Movies like Moonlight and Black Panther have been praised for their beautiful cinematography of dark skin, showing that technical excellence is possible across the full range of human colour. These advances are changing how dark skin is represented on screen, contributing to broader shifts in beauty standards. Let me tell you about how skin colour affects everyday interactions, the micro-level experiences that accumulate over a lifetime to shape how people of different colours move through the world. Studies have shown that skin colour affects how people are perceived in many contexts. Dark-skinned people are often perceived as more threatening than light-skinned people, even when their behaviour is identical. This perception affects how they are treated by police, by store clerks, by strangers on the street. It can affect whether they are seen as suspicious or trustworthy, professional or unprofessional, competent or incompetent. These perceptions are automatic and often unconscious. People who consciously reject racism may still harbour implicit biases that affect their perceptions and behaviours. Tests of implicit bias consistently show that many people, including people of colour, hold unconscious associations between dark skin and negative qualities. These associations are absorbed from the culture around us, often without our awareness, and they affect behaviour even when they conflict with our conscious beliefs. The accumulated effect of these daily interactions is significant. A dark-skinned person who is treated with suspicion dozens of times a day, every day for years, experiences a very different world than a light-skinned person who is given the benefit of the doubt. This difference is not about any individual interaction, but about the cumulative pattern, the weight of thousands of small slights and suspicions that add up to a fundamentally different experience of moving through the world. Awareness of implicit bias is the first step toward addressing it. Once we recognize that we hold unconscious associations, we can work to counteract them, pausing before acting on first impressions, seeking out diverse perspectives, deliberately exposing ourselves to positive images of people whose appearance differs from our own. This work is not easy, but it is possible. Implicit biases can change over time, particularly when we actively work to change them. Let me tell you about some of the hopeful signs, the ways in which attitudes toward human colour are changing for the better. Surveys show that explicit racism has declined dramatically over the past several decades. Fewer people openly express racist beliefs or support discriminatory policies. While some of this decline may reflect social desirability bias, the willingness to express racism in public, the overall trend is toward greater acceptance of racial diversity. Mixed-race populations are growing rapidly, particularly in diverse societies like the United States, Brazil, and the United Kingdom. People increasingly form families across racial lines, producing children who embody multiple heritages. These mixed-race individuals often have perspectives that transcend simple racial categories, seeing themselves as both and rather than either-or. Their growing numbers are changing how society thinks about race and colour. Representation in media is improving, though slowly. Movies, television shows, and advertisements increasingly feature people of all colours in diverse roles, not just as stereotypes but as fully developed characters. This representation matters, showing viewers that beauty and heroism and competence come in all colours, reshaping the standards that people absorb from the culture around them. Science is providing a clearer understanding of what skin colour actually is and is not. The research I have been sharing with you tonight about the evolution and genetics of human colour is becoming more widely known. As people understand that skin colour is simply an adaptation to UV radiation, nothing more, the racist ideologies that have been attached to colour become harder to sustain. Knowledge is power, and the knowledge of how humans became every colour is power against racism. Young people are generally more accepting of diversity than older generations. Each successive generation shows less explicit racism, less implicit bias, more comfort with diversity. This does not mean that racism is disappearing. It persists, and may even be resurgent in some contexts, but the long-term trend is toward greater acceptance. The world that today's children will inherit may be more just than the world we live in now. These hopeful signs do not mean that the work is done. Racism and colorism persist in individual attitudes and institutional structures. Progress is uneven, with advances in some areas and retreats in others. The future is not guaranteed. But progress is possible, and progress is happening. The story of human colour is not just a story of the past. It is a story that continues into the future, a story that we are all writing together. The night deepens, and with it comes a sense of peace. The story of human colour, which seemed so complicated when we began, reveals itself as a story of unity beneath diversity, of connection beneath apparent difference. Let me continue weaving the final threads of this tapestry, before sleep takes you completely. Let me tell you about how understanding human colour can change how you see the world. This is the practical wisdom that emerges from the science and history we have been exploring, the way of seeing that can transform daily experience. When you walk down a street and see people of many colours, you can see them as strangers, as others, as members of categories different from your own. Or you can see them as relatives, as family, as fellow travellers on the human journey. The science tells us that the second way of seeing is more accurate. The boundaries between colours are artificial. The categories we use are constructed. The differences that seem so significant are recent and superficial. Every person you see shares ancestors with you, shares the vast majority of their genes with you, shares the fundamental human condition with you. This way of seeing does not erase difference. People do look different. Skin colours do vary. Cultural backgrounds do diverge. But it puts difference in context, showing it as variation rather than division, as diversity rather than separation. It allows you to see both the differences and the unity, to appreciate the rainbow while recognizing that all the colours come from the same light. When you see a person whose skin colour is very different from your own, you can remember that their colour is an adaptation to their ancestors' environment, just as your colour is an adaptation to your ancestors' environment. Neither colour is better or worse, more evolved or less evolved. Both are solutions to the same problem, the problem of surviving under different levels of UV radiation. Both are part of the spectrum of human possibility, the range of appearance that our species has developed in its spread across the world. When you encounter prejudice based on skin colour, whether directed at you or at others, you can understand it as a misunderstanding, a failure to recognise the truth that science reveals. Racism is not just morally wrong, it is factually wrong, based on beliefs about human difference that do not stand up to scientific scrutiny. The knowledge of how humans became every colour is a tool against racism, a way of seeing through the lies that have been used to justify discrimination and oppression. When you think about your own skin colour, you can see it as part of your story, the visible trace of your ancestors' journey, the mark of the environments they inhabited and the adaptations they developed. It is neither something to be ashamed of nor something to be proud of, at least not in any deep sense. It is simply part of who you are, one feature among many, no more determinative of your worth or identity than the color of your eyes or the shape of your nose. Let me tell you about the wonder of human skin, this remarkable organ that we have been discussing all night. Skin is not just a wrapper or a covering. It is a living interface with the world, a dynamic system that senses and responds and protects. Taking a moment to appreciate your skin, to marvel at what it does, can be a gateway to appreciating your body as a whole. Your skin is home to trillions of microorganisms, a community of bacteria, fungi, and other tiny life forms that live on and in your skin. This microbiome is not an infection. It is a symbiotic community that contributes to your health. The microbiome helps protect against pathogens, trains your immune system, and may affect conditions from acne to eczema. You are not a single organism, but a community, a walking ecosystem, a collaboration between human cells and microbial partners. Your skin produces its own antimicrobial substances, peptides that kill bacteria and viruses before they can penetrate deeper. It maintains an acidic environment that hostile microorganisms find inhospitable. It sheds dead cells constantly, carrying away pathogens that have landed on the surface. Your skin is a fortress, constantly defending you against the microscopic threats that surround you. Your skin senses the world with remarkable precision. It contains multiple types of receptors that detect pressure, temperature, vibration, pain, and itch. The density of these receptors varies across the body, with fingertips and lips being particularly sensitive. The information from these receptors is integrated by your brain to create your sense of touch, the feeling of the world pressing against you, the awareness of your body's boundaries. Your skin communicates with others through appearance and through touch. The color and condition of your skin sends signals about your health, your age, your emotional state. The flush of embarrassment, the pallor of fear, the ruddiness of exertion. These are visible communications that others can read. Touch is a powerful form of social communication, conveying comfort, affection, dominance, submission, and many other messages. We are tactile creatures, and our skin is the organ of tactile connection. Your skin heals itself with remarkable efficiency. When you cut yourself, a cascade of processes begins immediately. Blood clots to stop bleeding. Inflammatory cells rush to the wound to fight infection. New cells begin to grow to fill the gap. Within days, a cut that seemed dramatic has begun to close. Within weeks, it may be barely visible. This healing process is a minor miracle, a demonstration of your body's power to repair itself. Your skin tells the story of your life. Scars mark injuries. Wrinkles mark expressions you have made thousands of times. Calluses mark the work you have done. Tan lines mark the sun you have enjoyed. Freckles and moles mark genetic variations that distinguish you from others. Your skin is a diary, written in the language of cells and pigments, recording your journey through time. Let me tell you one more thing about the biology of skin color, a detail that I find particularly moving. The cells that produce melanin, the melanocytes, are originally derived from the neural crest, the same embryonic tissue that gives rise to neurons and other components of the nervous system. In a sense, your melanocytes are distant relatives of your brain cells, both descended from the same developmental source. This connection between pigment cells and nerve cells is more than just an embryological curiosity. It hints at the deep integration of the body's systems, the way that everything is connected to everything else. Your skin is not separate from your brain. Both are part of the same body, the same organism, the same you. The color that covers you is produced by cells that share ancestry with the cells that think your thoughts. When you look at your skin, you're looking at part of your nervous system, a peripheral extension of the neural tissue that makes you conscious. In a deep sense, your skin is part of your mind, part of how you experience and interact with the world. It is not just a boundary between inside and outside. It is a zone of interaction, a place where self and world meet and mingle. Let me now bring this long story to its true conclusion. We have travelled far tonight, from the African savannas where humanity was born to the farthest corners of the world where humanity has spread. We have followed the genes as they mutated and spread, lightening skin here and preserving it there, painting the human species in every colour of the spectrum. We have considered the science and the history, the personal and the political, the biological and the cultural dimensions of human colour. What remains is simply to rest in the knowledge we have gained, to let it settle into our minds and hearts, to carry it forward into our lives. You are one colour in the human rainbow, whatever that colour is, dark or light, brown or beige or olive. It is beautiful. It is the mark of your ancestors' journey, the visible trace of your lineage, the connection between you and all who came before. It is neither better nor worse than any other colour, neither more evolved nor less evolved, neither a source of shame nor a reason for superiority. It is simply part of who you are, one feature among the countless features that make you the unique and unrepeatable individual you are. Your colour connects you to the past. Thousands of generations of ancestors lived and loved and struggled and survived to pass their genes to you. Their journeys across continents, their adaptations to new environments, their survival through ice ages and famines and diseases. All of this is encoded in the genes that give you your colour. When you look at your skin, you are looking at history, at the accumulated decisions of evolution acting over tens of thousands of years. Your colour connects you to the future. If you have children, or if you have already had children, or if you will have children someday, they will carry some version of your genes forward. The colour of future generations will depend in part on you, on the genes you contribute to the ongoing human experiment. You are a link in a chain that stretches from the first humans in Africa to whatever humans will exist in the far future. Your colour connects you to every other human being. Every person alive today shares ancestors with you, shares most of their genes with you, shares the fundamental human experience with you. The differences in colour that seem so significant are recent variations on a common theme, superficial decorations on a shared foundation. Beneath the different colours, we are one species, one family, one people. This is the message of the science of human colour. It is a message of unity beneath diversity, of connection beneath apparent difference. It is a message that can help us see through the racism and colorism that have caused so much suffering, that can help us build a world in which skin colour is no longer a basis for discrimination or hierarchy or hate. The night is here. Sleep is waiting. Let the story settle into your dreams, becoming part of how you understand yourself and your species. Let the knowledge comfort you, the awareness that you belong to the human family, that you are one colour in a beautiful rainbow, that you are home in the spectrum of humanity. Sleep now, child of Africa. Sleep, descendant of migrants who crossed continents and oceans. Sleep, carrier of genes that have travelled through thousands of generations to combine in you. Your skin holds you safe through the night, sensing and protecting, breathing and healing. It is the same skin that has held humans since the beginning, the same organ that covered your most distant ancestors on the African savannah. It connects you to them and to all who have lived between then and now. The colours of humanity are fading into darkness as sleep approaches. The rainbow is disappearing into the night, each colour becoming invisible, each person becoming simply a sleeper, a dreamer, a human being at rest. But the colours will return with the dawn. The sun will rise and light will fall on skin of every shade, illuminating the diversity of human appearance, the spectrum of human possibility. And you will be there, one colour among many, one human among billions, one note in the chord of humanity. Rest now in the darkness, where colour disappears and all humans are the same. Rest in the unity that underlies the diversity, the shared humanity that connects every person on earth. Rest knowing that whatever you look like, you belong. You are human, you are family, you are home. The story of how humans became every colour is complete, but the story of humanity continues, written in every birth, every life, every death, every generation that carries the genes forward into the future. You are part of that story. Your colour is part of that story. Your life is part of that story. But wait. Stay just a moment more. Let me leave you with a few final thoughts, a few last images to carry into your dreams. Imagine you could watch the history of human colour unfold in fast motion, like a time-lapse of 300,000 years compressed into minutes. You would see the first humans in Africa, dark-skinned all, living under the equatorial sun. You would see them spread slowly across the continent, adapting to different environments, developing the diversity of African appearance that exists today. Then you would see them leave Africa, crossing into the Middle East, spreading along the coasts of Asia. You would see them reach Australia, reaching it so long ago that it was still connected to the mainland by land bridges now submerged. You would see them push north into Europe, into the cold and the darkness, into lands where the sun barely rose for months at a time. And you would see the colours begin to change. First slowly, then with increasing speed, you would see skin lightening in the north, adapting to the weak sunlight, allowing the production of vitamin D that survival required. You would see the same process occurring in different places, in Europe and East Asia, different genes but the same outcome, light skin spreading through populations like a wave. You would see the diversity of human colour reach something like its current form, the spectrum from dark to light, from Africa to the Arctic, from equator to pole. You would see this spectrum persist for thousands of years, the isolation of populations maintaining the differences that environment had created. And then, in the final moments of your time-lapse, you would see something new. You would see humans begin to move again, not slowly this time, but rapidly, crossing oceans in ships, crossing continents in days rather than generations. You would see populations that had been separate for tens of thousands of years come together again, mixing, mingling, producing children who carried genes from every corner of the world. This is where we are now, in this moment of reconnection, this era of mixing. The isolation that created the diversity of human colour is ending. The future may hold a gradual blending, a coming together of the colours that evolution separated, a new unity emerging from the diversity of the past. Or maybe not. The future is not determined. Human choices, not just biological processes, will shape what comes next. But whatever happens, the history of how humans became every colour will remain part of who we are, written in our genes, visible in our skin, a reminder of the journey that brought us here. Let me tell you about something you can do tomorrow, a way to carry this story forward into your waking life. Find a photograph of yourself. Look at your skin in the image. Think about what that skin represents, the journey of your ancestors, the environments they lived in, the adaptations they developed. Think about how your skin connects you to the past and to the future, to everyone who shares your colour and to everyone who does not. Then find a photograph of someone whose skin colour is very different from yours. Look at their skin. Think about what it represents, the different journey of their ancestors, the different environments, the different adaptations. Think about how their skin, like yours, tells a story of survival and adaptation, of evolution and environment. Then think about what you share. The same species, the same basic biology, the same capacity for thought and feeling, for love and grief, for hope and fear. The differences you can see are real, but they are superficial. The similarities you cannot see are profound and permanent. This exercise in seeing can become a habit. Every time you notice skin colour, your own or someone else's, you can remember the science, the history, the truth of how humans became every colour. You can see through the categories that divide us to the unity that underlies them. You can appreciate the diversity while recognising the shared humanity. This is not about being colourblind, about pretending not to see differences that are obviously visible. It is about seeing more, not less. It is about seeing the history written in skin, the evolution that shaped us, the journeys that brought us here. It's about adding context to colour, understanding to appearance, science to intuition. The world needs more of this kind of seeing. Racism persists because people see colour without understanding it, because they attach meanings to melanin that melanin does not carry, because they mistake adaptation for hierarchy. The antidote is not to ignore colour but to understand it, to know the science, to see through the lies. You can be part of this antidote. By knowing the story I have told you tonight, by carrying it forward, by sharing it with others, you contribute to a world in which skin colour is understood for what it is, an adaptation to sunlight, a marker of ancestral environment, a superficial variation on a common human theme. Nothing more, nothing less. Let me tell you about the children who are being born tonight, all over the world in every colour of the human rainbow. In hospitals and homes, in cities and villages, on every continent, babies are emerging into the light, taking their first breaths, opening their eyes for the first time on a world of colour and light and sound. These babies carry the future of human colour in their genes. Some are dark-skinned, born to parents from tropical regions. Some are light-skinned, born to parents from northern latitudes. Many are somewhere in between, or carry genes from multiple regions, mixtures that will express in ways their parents cannot fully predict. All of them are human. All of them carry the same fundamental genetics, the same basic biology, the the same capacity for consciousness and love. The color of their skin will affect how the world treats them, unfortunately, because racism and colorism persist. But the color of their skin will not determine who they are, what they can do, what they can become. The future those babies will inhabit is uncertain. Will racism persist, or will it finally be overcome? Will colorism continue to privilege some shades over others, or will the full diversity of human appearance be equally valued? Will the mixing of populations continue, blending the colors that evolution separated, or will new divisions emerge, new boundaries, new categories? We cannot know, but we can hope. We can work toward a future in which skin color is no longer a basis for discrimination, in which every color is recognized as equally human, equally valuable, equally worthy of respect and opportunity. We can carry the science forward, the knowledge of how humans became every color, using it as a tool against the ignorance that fuels racism. Those babies being born tonight will inherit the world we leave them. Let us leave them a world in which the rainbow of human color is celebrated, not ranked. A world in which the science of skin is widely known, not hidden. A world in which every child, whatever their color, can look in the mirror and see beauty, see potential, see the face of a full and equal member of the human family. This is the dream that the science of human color supports. It is a dream of unity and diversity, of equality and difference, of justice in a world that has known too much injustice. It is a dream worth dreaming, worth working for, worth carrying forward into the waking world. Dream it tonight, carry it tomorrow, pass it on to the next generation. The spectrum of human color is waiting for a world that deserves it. Let us build that world together. One more thing before you go completely. One more thought to carry into your dreams. Think about what it means that you exist at all. Of all the possible humans who could have been born, of all the combinations of genes that could have come together, you are the one who actually exists. The chain of ancestors stretching back through time, each one surviving long enough to reproduce, each one finding a mate, each one passing genes forward to the next generation. This chain is unbroken from the first life on Earth to you. If any link had broken, if any ancestor had died before reproducing, you would not exist. Your skin color is part of this improbability. The genes that give you your color traveled through this long chain, present in some ancestors and not in others, mixing and recombining with each generation until they combined in just the way that produced you. A different combination would have produced a different color. A different chain of ancestors would have produced a different person entirely. You are the latest expression of 300,000 years of human evolution, and before that, millions of years of primate evolution, and before that, billions of years of life on Earth. Your skin, whatever its color, is the current edition of an organ that has been evolving since the first multicellular organisms developed outer layers to protect themselves from the environment. The melanin in your skin is produced by biochemical pathways that are hundreds of millions of years old, inherited from ancestors so distant that they would be unrecognizable as relatives. This deep time perspective can be humbling. You're not just a person with a particular skin color. You're a moment in a process that has been unfolding for billions of years, a process that will continue long after you're gone. The color of your skin connects you to this vast history, makes you part of this cosmic story, links you to the unfolding of life on Earth, and yet you are also uniquely yourself. Of all the humans who have ever lived, and all who ever will live, there is only one you. Your particular combination of genes, your particular experiences, your particular consciousness, these exist only once in the history of the universe. The color of your skin is part of this uniqueness, part of what makes you the specific individual you are, part of your unrepeatable contribution to the human story. Both of these things are true at once. You are a moment in a cosmic process and a unique individual. You are connected to all life and separate from all other individuals. You are one color in the human rainbow and a complete person in yourself. These truths do not contradict each other. They complement each other, creating the full picture of who and what you are. Let me tell you about the moment when dawn will come and you will wake. The light will return to the world, illuminating the colors that darkness hid. Your skin will catch the light, absorbing some wavelengths, reflecting others, appearing as whatever color your genes have made it. And you will begin another day as a colored being in a world of color. What will you do with that day? How will you carry forward the knowledge you have gained tonight? How will you let the science of human colour shape how you see and act? Perhaps you will notice skin colour more consciously than before, seeing it as an adaptation, as history, as a marker of ancestral environment. Perhaps you will catch yourself making assumptions based on colour and pause to question them, to remember that colour tells us nothing about character or ability. Perhaps you will speak up when you encounter racism, armed with the knowledge that racist beliefs are not just wrong but factually incorrect. Perhaps you will look at your own skin with new appreciation, seeing it as part of your story, your connection to the past, your place in the human family. Perhaps you will feel gratitude for the ancestors who survived and adapted and passed their genes to you. Perhaps you will feel responsibility to pass something good to future generations, not just genes, but knowledge, not just colour, but wisdom. The choice is yours. The knowledge is a tool, but tools must be used to have effect. The science of human colour can sit inert in your mind, or it can transform how you see and act. The difference depends on you. I hope you will use it. I hope you will carry the knowledge forward, letting it shape your perceptions, inform your actions, contribute to a world in which skin colour is understood and not feared, appreciated and not ranked. I hope you will be part of the change that the science of human colour makes possible. But for now, rest. The work of transformation can wait until morning. Tonight is for sleep, for dreams, for the restoration that the body and mind need to face another day. Let the knowledge settle. Let the story integrate. Let the truth become part of who you are. And wake ready to live in that future, to help create it, to be one colour contributing to the whole. The story of how humans became every colour is your story. And as the final moments of wakefulness fade, as consciousness dissolves into the gentle darkness of sleep, remember this one truth above all others. Every human being who has ever lived has had skin. Dark skin, light skin, every shade between. Every human being who is alive tonight has skin. Every human being who will ever live will have skin. This simple fact connects us all, makes us all members of the same family, makes the rainbow of human colour a single continuous spectrum rather than separate categories. The person on the other side of the world, whose skin is a different colour from yours, is sleeping too or waking, or going about their day. They are breathing the same air, living on the same planet, sharing the same moment in cosmic time. Their skin, like yours, is doing its work, protecting, sensing, healing, communicating. Their genes, like yours, carry the history of human evolution, the record of ancestral journeys, the adaptations to environments they never saw. You're connected to that person. You share ancestors. You share biology. You share the human condition. The colour that distinguishes you is real, but it is superficial. What unites you goes deeper than skin. This is the final message of the science of human colour. Connection, unity, family. We are one species scattered across the earth, adapted to every environment, painted in every shade, but one. The differences are real. The unity is more real still. Carry this message into your dreams. Carry it into tomorrow. Carry it through your life. You're one colour in the human rainbow. The rainbow is beautiful, and you belong in it. The stars above know nothing of human colour. They shine equally on dark and light, on every shade of the human rainbow. For billions of years before humans existed, the stars shone. For billions of years after we're gone, they will continue shining. In the cosmic perspective, our colours are momentary, our differences fleeting, our entire species a brief flicker in the immense darkness of space and time, and yet we matter. Our colours matter, our experiences matter, the joy and suffering, the love and loss, the connection and isolation that humans feel, all of this matters to us who feel it. We may be small in cosmic terms, but we are everything to ourselves. Our colours are part of our experience, part of how we see and are seen, part of the texture of our brief lives. So sleep now with both perspectives. Know that you are vast and small, eternal and momentary, one colour and all colours. Know that the spectrum of humanity is both cosmically insignificant and personally profound. Know that you belong to something larger than yourself, and that you are irreducibly yourself. The science of human colour holds both truths. We are products of evolution, shaped by impersonal forces, painted by UV radiation and natural selection. And we are conscious beings, experiencing our colours, giving them meaning, using them to connect and divide, to celebrate and discriminate. The science tells us what color is. How we live with color is up to us. Choose well, see truly, love widely. The rainbow holds you tonight and every night. You are one color among many. You are human. Good night.